Hey story enthusiasts! This is Ben 10 What If bringing you another gem. In this video, we present to you What If Ben 10 was a Marine in One Piece. If you enjoy these stories as much as we enjoy sharing them, please like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Let's dive in. Chapter 1, A Hero's Duty. The morning sun glinted off the waves as Marine Captain Ben Tennyson stood at the bow of his ship, the Rust Bucket. Salt spray misted his face while he adjusted the strange green device on his wrist, what most believed to be some kind of weird log pose but was actually something far more alien to this world. "Captain. Island spotted ahead," called Lieutenant Moore from the crow's nest. Ben nodded, green eyes scanning the horizon where a dark smudge was growing larger by the minute. Gallows Island, rumored hideout of the Vilgax pirates. Intel suggested the infamous Fishman captain had been experimenting on civilians, but Ben's orders were frustratingly vague: capture Vilgax, secure any objects of interest, and report directly to Marine headquarters. "Ready the men," Ben called back. "And remember, we're after Vilgax and his officers. Not interested in small fry today." He ran a hand through his brown hair, feeling the weight of command. 3 years in this world, and he still wasn't used to being responsible for an entire ship of Marines. Back home, he'd been a solo hero, well, mostly solo if you didn't count Gwen and Kevin constantly butting in. Here, as a Marine captain, every decision meant lives on the line. "You look constipated again, Captain," came a gravelly voice behind him. "That's your overthinking things face." Ben turned to see Kevin Levin approaching, a cocky grin on his scarred face. The former pirate-turned-informant wasn't officially part of the Marine crew, but his knowledge of the underworld made him invaluable, even if his attitude drove Ben crazy. "Just planning the approach," Ben replied, flashing a quick grin. "Some of us do that instead of charging in like idiots." Kevin snorted, running a hand over the metal railing, his skin momentarily taking on its properties. "Devil fruit ability, as far as anyone in this world knew. Says the guy who turned into a giant four-armed wrestler to punch a sea king last week." "Hey, that worked. The paperwork took you 3 days." Ben winced. The bureaucracy was definitely the worst part of Marine life. He missed the days when he could just transform, save the day, and grab a smoothie afterward. "Whatever. What view you got on Vilgax's forces?" Kevin leaned against the railing. "About 40 crew total. 5 officers with bounties worth mentioning. Vilgax himself is pushing 300 million berries after that massacre at Water 7. And the experiments?" Kevin's expression darkened. "Nothing concrete. Rumors say he's working with someone from the government, off books, of course. Whatever they're doing has something to do with devil fruits." That matched what Vice Admiral Gwen had told him in their last call. His cousin had adjusted to this world even better than he had, rising quickly through the ranks thanks to her natural talent with observation hockey. She'd warned him to be careful with this mission, that something felt wrong about the whole situation. "Captain." The lookout's voice interrupted his thoughts. "There's another ship approaching from the south. Looks like, sir, I think it's the Straw Hat Pirates." Ben cursed under his breath. The Straw Hats complicated everything. Their captain, Monkey D. Luffy, had a knack for showing up exactly where Ben didn't want him. "You're smiling," Kevin observed. "I am not. R2. You love this chaos." Maybe he did, a little. For all his complaints about this world, the constant adventure reminded him of the good old days with the Omnitrix. Before the politics. Before the plumbers became just another bureaucracy. "Change of plans," Ben announced, turning to his first mate. "Divide the landing parties. I'll handle the Straw Hats if they make landfall." "Alone, sir." Ben tapped the Omnitrix. "I'm never alone." The beach was a stretch of black volcanic sand, the kind that got everywhere and stayed there for days. Ben moved silently through the sparse tree line, keeping low. He dropped his marine coat back on the ship, sometimes anonymity worked better than authority. His reconnaissance had revealed both the Vilgax pirates and the Straw Hats had indeed made landfall, though on opposite sides of the island. The volcano at the center made direct passage impossible, forcing everyone to skirt around the coastal regions. A twig snapped to his right. Ben froze, hand hovering over the Omnitrix. He'd learned to trust his instincts in this world, where hockey users could sense presence and some pirates could hear thoughts. "I know you're there," he called out. "And I know you know I'm here. So let's skip the sneaking around part." A soft chuckle, then a slender woman stepped out from behind a large fern. Raven hair, piercing blue eyes, and an enigmatic smile that reminded Ben a little too much of Gwen when she knew something he didn't. Nico Robin. Archaeologist of the Straw Hat Pirates. Bounty, 130 million berries. Captain Tennyson, she greeted him, arms folded across her chest. Not a fighting stance, just her usual pose. "I thought you might be the one they'd send." "How'd you know I was here?" Ben asked, genuinely curious. Robin wasn't known for observation hockey. She smiled, and suddenly an ear grew from the tree beside him, then vanished in a flutter of petals. "I have eyes and ears everywhere." Literally. Right. Her devil fruit power. The flower fruit that let her sprout body parts anywhere in her range. "Where's the rest of your crew?" Ben asked, scanning the trees. "Looking for the same thing you are, I suspect. Victims of Vilgax's experiments." Ben raised an eyebrow. "Not his treasure." Robin's smile faded. "Some things are more valuable than gold, Captain. Like information. Vilgax has been working with someone in the world government, conducting experiments on devil fruit users. The same intel Kevin had mentioned." Ben's gut twisted. If the Straw Hats knew about it too, there had to be some truth to it. "And what's your interest? Luffy planning to recruit some new freaks for his crew?" Robin's eyes flashed dangerously. "People are disappearing from islands across the New World. Fishmen, humans, even a giant. All devil fruit users. Does that sound like marine justice to you, Captain?" It didn't. But Ben had learned that justice in this world was complicated. The Marines weren't the straightforward heroes he'd initially assumed them to be. Some, like Vice Admiral Gwen, fought for true justice. Others served more selfish interests. "I'm here to stop Vilgax," Ben said finally. "Whatever he's doing, whoever he's working with, it ends today." Robin studied him for a long moment. "Then perhaps, just this once, we're on the same side." Before Ben could respond, an explosion rocked the northern side of the island. Birds scattered from trees, and a plume of smoke rose above the canopy. Ben grinned despite himself. "Let me guess, Luffy." "Most likely," Robin sighed. "Subtlety isn't our captain's specialty." "Well, there goes the element of surprise." Ben started moving toward the explosion, then paused, looking back at Robin. "You coming?" She fell into step beside him. A Marine and a pirate working together. The newspapers would have a field day. "Who says we're working together? Maybe I'm escorting my prisoner." Robin laughed, a genuine sound that made Ben smile. "And which one of us is the prisoner in this scenario? Let's find out after we deal with Vilgax." They found chaos at Vilgax's compound, a collection of steel buildings nestled in a cove, surrounded by defensive walls that were now partially destroyed. The Straw Hats had indeed arrived first, and in typical fashion had announced themselves with explosions and yelling. From their vantage point on a cliff overlooking the compound, Ben could see Luffy bouncing around in his rubber form, taking on multiple opponents at once. The swordsman Zoro was cutting through the main gate while their sniper provided covering fire. The rest were likely inside already. Ben's marine squad had engaged with pirates fleeing the compound, the sounds of battle carrying up from the beach. "Your crew doesn't waste time," Ben muttered. Robin shrugged. "When Luffy hears someone's hurting innocent people, restraint isn't in his vocabulary. Movement caught Ben's eye, a group of pirates escorting what looked like prisoners from one building to another. Even from this distance, he could see they wore sea stone cuffs. There, he pointed. Those must be the test subjects. Robin nodded, her expression grave. I count 12. All different sizes. Look, there's even a child. Ben felt his blood boil. Children. Vilgax was experimenting on children. Some lines shouldn't be crossed, even in a world as morally gray as this one. I need to get down there, he said, already reaching for the Omnitrix. Wait. Robin placed a hand on his arm. The main laboratory is in that building. She pointed to a structure partially built into the cliff face. If we want to know what Vilgax is really doing, that's where we need to look. Ben hesitated. His orders were to capture Vilgax and secure objects of interest for HQ. But those prisoners needed help now. Fine. You check the lab. I'll free the prisoners. Robin raised an eyebrow. You trust me to share what I find? No, Ben admitted. But I trust you care about stopping whatever's happening here more than you care about keeping secrets from me. Besides. He grinned, activating the Omnitrix. I'll catch up with you fast enough. Green light flashed as the device reconfigured his DNA. Where Ben Tennyson had stood a moment before, now crouched a velociraptor-like creature with wheels for feet. XLR-8, he announced in a raspy voice. Don't suppose you've got a devil fruit that can keep up with me? Robin blinked, her usual composure momentarily shaken. Interesting. The Marines call it the shape-shaped fruit, but I've never seen a transformation quite like that before. That's because there's nothing like me in this world, XLR-8 replied. Or any world. Before Robin could respond, he was gone, a blue and black streak racing down the cliffside toward the compound. XLR-8 moved like lightning through the compound, his enhanced perception making everything else seem frozen in time. Marines and pirates alike appeared to be standing still as he wove between them. He reached the prisoners just as their guards were opening the door to what looked like a reinforced bunker. Without slowing down, XLR-8 snatched the keys from the lead guard's hand and systematically unlocked each prisoner's cuffs. To them, it must have seemed like their restraints simply fell away by magic. Only when XLR-8 finally stopped moving did they see him. What are you? Asked one of the former prisoners, a fishman with electric blue scales. The good guy, XLR-8 replied, just as the guards realized what had happened and turned with weapons raised. But XLR-8 was already moving again, disarming the pirates in seconds and tying them up with their own belts. When he stopped again, 5 confused pirates found themselves bound back to back. Marine Captain Ben Tennyson, he introduced himself to the stunned prisoners. You're all free to go, but I'd appreciate knowing what Vilgax wanted with you first. The prisoners exchanged nervous glances. Finally, a tall woman with butterfly wings sprouting from her back spoke up. They were extracting something from our bodies. Said our devil fruits had unique properties they needed. Extracting how? Ben asked, the Omnitrix timing out with a flash of red light, returning him to human form. The prisoners stared in amazement at his transformation, but the butterfly woman continued. With machines. Painful ones. They took blood, tissue samples, even pieces of our organs sometimes. Ben felt sick. Did they say why? A small voice piped up. The scary fish man said they were making something new. Something better than regular devil fruits. Ben looked down to see the child Robin had spotted, a boy no older than 10 with scales on his forearms. Another fishman hybrid, or maybe some kind of Zoan fruit user. Did any of you see someone from the world government here? Someone working with Vilgax? The prisoners shook their heads, but the butterfly woman spoke again. Vilgax talked to someone via Den Mushi. Called them doctor and mentioned CP something. CP0. Cypher Paul. The world government's covert operatives. If they were involved, this went higher than Ben had authority to investigate. Shouting from nearby interrupted his thoughts. More of Vilgax's crew had spotted them. "Get to the beach," Ben told the prisoners. "My Marines will protect you." "What about you?" asked the scaled boy. Ben smiled, activating the Omnitrix again. "I need to have a word with Captain Vilgax." Green light enveloped him, restructuring his DNA into one of his favorite forms. His body expanded enormously, growing 4 massive arms, red skin, and enough muscle mass to make a giant jealous. 4 arms. He bellowed, startling the approaching pirates into momentary stillness. Then he charged. Robin moved silently through the laboratory, her powers allowing her to scout ahead by sprouting eyes and ears in strategic locations. What she found disturbed even her normally unflappable demeanor. The lab contained row after row of containers, each holding what appeared to be malformed devil fruits. Some pulsed with unnatural light, others oozed strange fluids. Notes pinned beside each detailed failed experiments, attempts to synthesize artificial devil fruits with combined properties. In the center of the lab stood a large machine connected to a tank filled with swirling, multicolored liquid. A placard on the side read, "Project Ultimatrix." Robin quickly sprouted hands to gather key documents, photographing others with the mini Den Mushy she carried. Whatever was happening here went beyond typical pirate activity. This was systematic research backed by significant resources. She was examining a logbook when a deep, raspy voice froze her in place. "The demon child of O'Hara. Your reputation precedes you." Robin turned slowly to face a massive figure in the doorway. Over 8 feet tall with green-tinged skin, tentacles where a beard might be, and eyes that burned with cold malice. Captain Vilgax himself. "And yours precedes you, Captain Vilgax," she replied calmly, mentally calculating escape routes. "Though I must say, your scientific interests surprise me. Pirates don't typically dabble in genetic research." Vilgax stepped into the lab, armored body clanking with each movement. This coming from the archaeologist who sails with Straw Hat Luffy? "We all have our side projects. Torturing devil fruit users to create artificial powers is quite the hobby." Vilgax's tentacles writhed with apparent amusement. "Not artificial. Enhanced. Perfected. The world government has been experimenting with artificial devil fruits for years with limited success. My approach is more direct. Harvesting from living subjects," Robin said flatly. "Precisely. Why replicate what you can extract? Devil fruit powers reside in the bloodline elements of the user. Isolate those elements, recombine them correctly, and..." He gestured toward the central tank, "You can create something new. Something perfect." Robin took a careful step back. "And your benefactors in the world government approve of this method?" Vilgax laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. "The world government cares about results, not methods. They'll officially condemn my actions while secretly funding more research. Such is the hypocrisy of your world's leaders." "They're not my leaders," Robin corrected. "No," Vilgax agreed. "Which is why you won't be leaving this room with what you've learned." He moved with surprising speed for his size, tentacles extending toward her like striking snakes. Robin crossed her arms, summoning a dozen limbs that sprouted from the ceiling to grab onto pipes and equipment, pulling her up and away from his grasp. "Clutch," she called, sprouting arms on Vilgax's body to bend him backward. But his armored exoskeleton resisted her attempt. He merely grunted, then reached up and grabbed her manifested limbs, causing Robin to gasp in pain as he crushed them into flower petals. "Interesting ability," he observed. "Your lineage factor would make a valuable addition to my collection." Robin landed on a high shelf, wincing. "I'm not interested in donating." "Your interest is irrelevant," Vilgax replied, reaching for a weapon on his belt. "Though I admit, I'm curious how your powers would interact with those of the shapeshifter Marine." Robin narrowed her eyes. Captain Tennyson. A most unusual devil fruit, his. Unlike anything in my records. The ability to transform into multiple distinct creatures, each with different powers. Vilgax's eyes gleamed. Imagine combining that adaptability with your multiplication ability. I'd rather not, came a voice from the doorway. Both Robin and Vilgax turned to see Ben standing there, the Omnitrix glowing green on his wrist. Tennyson, Vilgax growled. The Marines send their pet shapeshifter. Ben stepped into the lab, eyes taking in the equipment, the tanks, the documents Robin had been gathering. His expression hardened. I've met a lot of Vilgaxes across a lot of universes, he said conversationally. And you know what? You're not even the worst. But experimenting on kids? That puts you right up there. Vilgax tilted his head. Across universes? What an interesting choice of words. Ben cursed internally. He'd been in this world long enough to know better than to hint at his origins. Only Gwen, Kevin, and a handful of high-ranking Marines knew the truth. Figure of speech, he recovered quickly. Point is, you're done. Whatever you're doing here stops now. You think your transformations can defeat me? Vilgax laughed. I've been studying you, Tennyson. Every form, every ability, every weakness. Then you should know what comes next, Ben replied, activating the Omnitrix. Green light flashed, and where Ben had stood now loomed a creature made entirely of green crystal. Diamond Head, he announced. Let's see how your research holds up against this. Diamond Head thrust his arms forward, sending crystalline shards shooting toward Vilgax. The Fishman captain dodged with surprising agility, returning fire with a wrist-mounted laser that scorched the wall where Diamond Head had been standing a moment before. Robin. Diamond Head called out. Get those documents out of here. This is about to get messy. Robin nodded, gathering what she could and heading for a side exit. Vilgax moved to intercept her, but Diamond Head created a crystal barrier in his path. Your fights with me, calamari face. Vilgax turned back, eyes narrowing. Very well, Tennyson. Let's see what you're really made of. The Fishman pirate charged, mechanical gauntlets powering up with crackling energy. Diamond Head braced himself, transforming both arms into diamond blades. The collision shook the entire laboratory. Robin made it outside just as the first explosion rocked the building. Looking back, she saw windows shatter as green crystal spikes burst through the walls. The battle between Ben and Vilgax was destroying the lab from the inside out. She needed to find Luffy and the others. The documents she'd secured contained information that could shake the foundations of the world government if revealed, proof of their complicity in illegal experimentation, names of officials involved, and details of a project called Ultimatrix that seemed designed to create superior artificial devil fruits. Robin hurried through the compound, using her powers to scout ahead. The fighting had spread throughout the area, with Straw Hat crew members engaged against Vilgax's officers while Ben's Marines secured the perimeter and evacuated the former prisoners. She found Luffy in the central courtyard, stretching his rubber limbs to pummel a group of pirates into submission. Robin, he called cheerfully, as if they were meeting for dinner rather than in the middle of a battlefield. Did you find anything cool? Information, she replied, holding up the documents. Vilgax is creating artificial devil fruits using captive fruit users. And the world government is helping him. Luffy's expression darkened, rare seriousness crossing his normally carefree face. That's messed up. Indeed. And Captain Tennyson is currently fighting Vilgax in the main laboratory. The transforming guy. Luffy's eyes lit up with excitement. I wanna see that. His powers are super cool. Before Robin could respond, another explosion shook the compound. This one came from the lab, followed by a column of fire that shot skyward. That doesn't look good, Robin observed. Luffy was already running toward it, arms stretching to grab onto distant structures and propel himself forward. Come on. Let's help him. Robin sighed but followed. Despite being pirates and marines, ostensibly enemies, the Straw Hats and Ben Tennyson had found themselves allied against greater evils more than once. There was something about the young captain that reminded her of Luffy, a straightforward sense of right and wrong that transcended arbitrary sides. As they approached the burning laboratory, a section of wall exploded outward. Through the smoke stumbled Vilgax, his armor cracked and one tentacle severed. Behind him emerged a humanoid figure engulfed in flames. Heat blast, the fiery being announced. Had enough yet, Vilgax? Or do I need to turn up the heat? Vilgax wiped green blood from his mouth, eyes burning with hatred. You think this is over, Tennyson? This was merely one facility of dozens. The project continues with or without me. Then I'll shut them all down, Heat Blast replied, hands igniting with even more intense flames. One by one if I have to. Vilgax laughed, pulling a small device from his belt. You won't get the chance. My benefactors don't appreciate interference. He pressed a button, and suddenly the ground began to shake. Warning klaxons blared from hidden speakers around the compound. Self-destruct sequence activated, announced an automated voice. 3 minutes to detonation. You destroy your own research? Heat Blast demanded. Vilgax's tentacles writhed in amusement. The important data was transmitted hours ago. This facility has served its purpose, testing the extraction process. The next phase begins elsewhere. With that, Vilgax threw down a smoke bomb. When the air cleared, he was gone, leaving only a trail of green blood leading toward the docks. Coward, Heat Blast muttered, then noticed Luffy and Robin approaching. We need to evacuate. This whole place is going to blow. My crew's still fighting his officers. Luffy protested. And my marines are securing the prisoners, Heat Blast added. We need to get everyone out, now. The Omnitrix symbol on Heat Blast's chest beeped and flashed red. A moment later, Ben stood in his place, looking exhausted but determined. Luffy, get your crew. I'll coordinate with my marines, Ben ordered, all pretense of pirate marine animosity forgotten in the face of the greater threat. Luffy nodded seriously. Robin, go with him. Show him what you found. Robin raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. As Luffy stretched away to gather his crew, she turned to Ben. 2 minutes, 40 seconds, she reminded him. Ben tapped the Omnitrix again, transforming in a flash of green light into a blue-furred monkey-like creature with 4 arms and a tail. Spider Monkey, he announced in a chattering voice. Hop on. Robin climbed onto his back, and Spider Monkey took off, using his agility and tail to swing through the compound with incredible speed. As they moved, he activated his marine transponder snail. All units evacuate immediately. Compound set to self-destruct in T-2 minutes. Get the prisoners to minimum safe distance. Acknowledgements came through as they raced toward the beach. Robin held tight, impressed despite herself at the versatility of Ben's powers. Each form seemed to have completely different abilities, far beyond what most Zoan-type devil fruits provided. They reached the beach where marine boats were loading former prisoners. Lieutenant Moore saluted as Spider Monkey landed and transformed back into Ben. Sir. All prisoners accounted for and most of our men are already aboard. The Straw Hats appear to be withdrawing as well. Good, Ben replied. What about Vilgax? Moore's expression darkened. His submarine launched a few minutes ago. Heading northeast at high speed. Ben cursed. Submarines were nearly impossible to track in the Grand Line's unpredictable waters. We'll find him again, Robin assured him, handing over some of the documents she'd collected. These might help. They detail other research sites and named collaborators. Ben skimmed the papers, eyes widening. These names, if this is accurate, it goes higher than I thought. All the way to the 5 elders, according to some notes, Robin confirmed. The project seems to be about creating enhanced devil fruit powers that can be controlled by the government. A massive explosion interrupted them as the first buildings in the compound began to detonate. Fire and debris shot skyward. 1 minute, Ben muttered. Everyone get to the ships. The evacuation continued with increased urgency. Marine vessels and the Straw Hat Sunny pulling away from shore just as the main laboratory exploded with enough force to create a small tsunami. The shock wave rocked the ships, but they were far enough away to avoid serious damage. From the deck of the Rust Bucket, Ben watched the island facility burn. Robin stood beside him, having not yet returned to her own ship. "What will you do with the information?" she asked quietly. Ben sighed, tucking the documents into his coat. "Report to my superior. Vice Admiral Gwen will know how to handle this. Not Fleet Admiral Gregor." Ben's eyes narrowed. "No. This goes through proper channels first." Robin studied him. "You don't trust your own leadership." "I trust justice," Ben replied. "Sometimes that aligns with Marine hierarchy, sometimes it doesn't. A dangerous philosophy for a Marine captain." Ben smiled grimly. "Maybe. But it's the only way I can live with myself." A stretching arm suddenly appeared, grabbing the railing beside them. A moment later, Luffy rocketed onto the deck, landing with a thud that made several Marines reach for their weapons. "Straw Hat Luffy!" Lieutenant Moore shouted. "You're on a Marine vessel." Ben held up a hand. "Stand down. He's just retrieving his crew member." Luffy grinned, seemingly unconcerned about being surrounded by Marines. "Hey, transform guy. That was some cool fighting back there. You should join my crew." Ben couldn't help but laugh. "Thanks for the offer, but I'll pass. Besides, I think the Marines pay better." "Boring," Luffy declared. "Fighting bad guys is its own reward." He turned to Robin. "Coming back? Sanji's making dinner." Robin nodded, but paused before leaving with her captain. "Captain Tennyson, that document about Project Ultimatrix mentions acquiring samples from the shapeshifter. I believe they meant you." Ben's expression hardened. "Let them try." "They will," Robin warned. "Whatever your power is, it's unlike any devil fruit I've encountered. That makes you valuable to them. I can take care of myself." "Perhaps," Robin conceded. "But watch your back, especially among your own ranks. According to those documents, there's at least one Marine Vice Admiral involved in the project." With that bombshell, she departed with Luffy, leaping from the Marine vessel back to the Thousand Sunny with her captain's rubber-powered assistance. Ben stood at the railing long after the Straw Hats had sailed away, turning Robin's warning over in his mind. A traitor among the Vice Admirals? It seemed impossible, and yet, after what he'd seen today, he couldn't dismiss it. Kevin joined him as the sun began to set, casting orange light across the waves. "Heard you let the Straw Hats go," he remarked. "They helped save those prisoners," Ben replied. "Didn't seem right to arrest them after that." Kevin nodded toward the documents in Ben's coat. "Find anything interesting?" "More than I wanted to." Ben handed him one of the papers. "Recognize any names?" Kevin scanned the list, his expression darkening. "Yeah. A few. Bad news, all of them." He looked up sharply. "This goes to Vice Admiral Gwen, right? Not through regular channels?" "Definitely." "Good." Kevin handed back the paper. "Because I'm pretty sure I spotted our old friend Albedo's name in there." Ben felt his blood run cold. Captain Albedo, a marine scientist who'd been obsessed with the Omnitrix since Ben first arrived in this world. He'd been transferred to a research division months ago, supposedly working on conventional weapons. If he's involved in this, then someone knows more about your little watch than they should, Kevin finished. Might be time to consider who you can really trust, Tennyson. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix. In this world, it was his greatest asset and potentially his greatest liability. If the world government discovered its true nature, and the fact that it wasn't a devil fruit power that could be extracted or replicated through conventional means, what would they do? Set course for Marine Base G5, he ordered Lieutenant Moore. We need to rendezvous with Vice Admiral Gwen immediately. As the rust bucket turned northeast, Ben felt a familiar weight settle on his shoulders. He'd come to this world by accident, but he'd chosen to become a Marine because he believed in protecting people. If the organization he served was involved in experiments like what he'd seen today, could he really continue wearing this uniform? Justice or duty? Sooner or later, he'd have to choose. Vice Admiral Gwen Tennyson reviewed the documents spread across her desk, emerald eyes narrowed in concentration. The office around her was sparse but elegant, a reflection of her no-nonsense approach to Marine leadership. The only personal touch was a small photo frame facing away from visitors, containing one of the few pictures she had from their home world. Ben stood at parade rest before her, Kevin slouching against the wall nearby. They'd arrived at G5 base after 2 days of hard sailing, maintaining communications silence the entire way. This confirms what I've been suspecting, Gwen finally said, setting down the last paper. Project Ultimatrix isn't just about creating artificial devil fruits. They're trying to develop powers that can counter the most dangerous fruits in existence. Like rubber? Ben asked, thinking of Luffy. Like darkness. Earthquakes. Time manipulation. Gwen's expression was grim. The powers that could threaten the world government's control. Since when do Marines care about control more than justice? Ben demanded. Gwen sighed, running a hand through her red hair. It's not that simple, Ben. You know that by now. Seems pretty simple to me. They're torturing innocent people, including children. I'm not defending it, Gwen replied sharply. I'm explaining the context. The power balance in this world is shifting. After Marineford, after what happened at Wano, the 5 elders are terrified of another Rocks Pirates situation. Kevin pushed away from the wall. So what do we do? Turn in our badges and join the Revolutionary Army? No, Gwen said firmly. We work within the system to change it. While more people suffer. Ben challenged. While we gather evidence and allies, Gwen countered. If we move too soon, with too little, we'll be crushed and replaced with people who won't care about doing the right thing. Ben wanted to argue, but he knew she had a point. In this world, justice wasn't as straightforward as punching the bad guy and saving the day. It required patience, strategy, and sometimes painful compromise. What about Albedo? He asked instead. His name was on those documents. Gwen's expression darkened. That's what concerns me most. If he's involved, then they know the Omnitrix isn't a devil fruit. And if they know that, then they know you're not from this world, Gwen finished. Which makes you either their greatest asset or their greatest threat. Kevin snorted. Definitely the latter. Tennyson's never been good at following orders. Hey! Ben protested. He's right, Gwen said with a small smile. It's why I trust you. Her expression turned serious again. But it's also why you need to be careful. I'm reassigning you. What? Gwen, no. I need to track down Vilgax and the other research facilities. Which is exactly what they'll expect you to do, she replied. You need to disappear for a while. At least until I can determine which vice admirals we can trust. Ben felt frustration building. So I'm supposed to hide while they continue experimenting on innocent people? No, Gwen said sharply. You're supposed to follow a different trail. One they won't expect. She pulled out a map from her desk drawer and unfolded it. This island doesn't officially exist. No log points to it. But according to one of my sources, it contains ruins that mention both devil fruits and something called the Chronosapien time cores. Ben's eyes widened. Chronosapien, like clockwork. He referred to one of his transformations with time manipulation abilities. Exactly, Gwen confirmed. If there's a connection between your Omnitrix and this world's ancient history, that island is where you'll find it. And meanwhile, you'll be investigating the Vice Admirals, Kevin guessed. Gwen nodded. While feeding false information about Ben's whereabouts. As far as anyone else knows, you're being sent to patrol the Calm Belt as punishment for letting the Straw Hats escape. Ben frowned. What about my crew? The Rust Bucket? Lieutenant Moore will be temporarily reassigned. He's a good officer, but we can't risk anyone tracking you. Gwen handed him a small envelope. You'll take a merchant vessel to these coordinates. Kevin will accompany you as your probation officer, let's say. Kevin grinned. I get to boss Tennyson around. I'm in. You wish, Ben muttered, but took the envelope. How long? As long as it takes, Gwen replied. This isn't just about stopping Project Ultimatrix anymore, Ben. This is about finding out why the Omnitrix works in this world at all, and what connection our universe might have to theirs. Ben hadn't considered that angle before. When they'd first arrived in this world, thrown through what seemed to be a dimensional rift during a battle with Forever Knight, they'd assumed it was a one-way trip, a random accident. But the Omnitrix had adapted surprisingly well to this reality, and some of his alien forms seemed almost native to this world. Fine, he conceded. But if I find evidence of more experimentation facilities, you contact me first, Gwen insisted. No solo heroics, Ben. Promise me. Ben sighed. I promise. As they left Gwen's office, Kevin nudged him. You're totally gonna break that promise, aren't you? Probably, Ben admitted. But I'll try not to. Kevin laughed. Some things never change, even across universes. But as they walked toward the docks, Ben couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. The familiar weight of the Omnitrix on his wrist felt heavier somehow, as if it too sensed the coming storm. Whatever connection existed between his powers and this world's ancient history, someone in the world government already knew about it, and was willing to torture innocent people to unlock its secrets. As a hero or as a Marine, Ben couldn't let that stand. The real question was, could he stop it without becoming what he was fighting against? Chapter 2, Crossed Lines. The merchant vessel Greymist creaked and groaned as it navigated the choppy waters surrounding the Sabaody archipelago. Ben leaned against the railing, watching giant bubbles rise from the archipelago's mangrove trees. 3 weeks had passed since the confrontation with Vilgax, and he was already going stir-crazy with this undercover assignment. You're making that face again, Kevin said, joining him at the railing. What face? That, I'd rather be punching something, face. The one that always got us in trouble back home. Ben snorted. I'm not making a face. Sure you are. Same one you made when we had to sit through that 3-hour plumber orientation. Kevin glanced around to ensure no one was listening. Look, I get it. Playing merchant sailor sucks when you know there are people getting hurt. But Gwen's plan is solid. Is it? Ben lowered his voice. It's been 3 weeks, and all we've found is more questions. Meanwhile, who knows how many more people Vilgax and his government friends have grabbed for their experiments. Kevin's expression darkened. You think I don't know that? But rushing in without knowing who's behind this would just get us killed or worse. Before Ben could respond, a commotion broke out near the dock they were approaching. A group of celestial dragons, the world nobles who considered themselves gods, was parading through the marketplace, their slaves clearing a path and civilians bowing in their wake. Speaking of people who deserve a punch in the face, Kevin muttered. Ben gripped the railing tighter. The celestial dragons represented everything wrong with this world's power structure. His first month as a Marine, he'd nearly been court-martialed for interfering when a world noble had shot a child's pet for being too noisy. Only Gwen's intervention had saved his career. Just keep your head down, Kevin warned. We're supposed to be undercover, remember? I know, Ben growled. The ship docked, and they disembarked with the other merchants. Their cover was simple. Kevin posed as a dealer in rare metals, with Ben as his assistant. It gave them freedom to move through the archipelago's lawless zones without attracting marine attention. We'll split up here, Ben said as they reached Grove 13. I'll check the auction houses for any signs of devil fruit users being sold. You hit your underground contacts. Kevin nodded. Meet back at Shacky's bar by sundown. And Tennyson, I know. No hero stuff. I was gonna say, no alien transformations unless absolutely necessary, but sure, that too. Ben rolled his eyes but nodded. As they parted ways, he pulled his hood lower over his face. His reputation as the shapeshifter marine made anonymity difficult, especially in a hub like Sabaody where bounty hunters and information brokers lurked around every corner. He made his way through the crowded streets, keeping his eyes open for any signs of Vilgax's operation. According to Gwen's intelligence, slave traders had been specifically targeting devil fruit users for private collectors, likely a cover for Project Ultimatrix. The first two auction houses yielded nothing, but as Ben approached the third, he spotted a familiar face slipping through a side entrance, Captain Albedo, the marine scientist whose name had appeared in Vilgax's files. Ben's pulse quickened. Albedo shouldn't be here, especially not sneaking into a slave auction house through a back door. He pressed his back against a nearby wall, activating the Omnitrix under his cloak. A flash of green light, and where Ben had stood was now a ghostly, phantom-like creature with a single eye. Ghost Freak, he whispered, his voice an eerie rasp. The transformation allowed him to phase through walls and become invisible, perfect for surveillance. He floated silently into the building, passing through the solid stone like it was air. Inside, the auction house bustled with activity as staff prepared for an upcoming sale. Wealthy buyers were already taking their seats in a luxurious viewing area. Ben spotted Albedo descending a staircase toward what appeared to be holding cells. Ghost Freak followed, maintaining his invisibility. The basement level was dimly lit and reeked of fear and unwashed bodies. Cages lined the walls, most containing people with varying degrees of modifications, the telltale signs of devil fruit users. Albedo stopped before a particularly large cage containing a young woman with scales covering portions of her skin. She glared defiantly as he approached. Subject 42, Albedo said, consulting a notebook. Zoan type. Fish fruit, model, mermaid. Limited aquatic abilities but complete underwater breathing. Quite rare. I have a name, the woman spat. It's Coral. Albedo continued as if she hadn't spoken. Your blood samples show promising compatibility with the Ultimatrix formula. Congratulations, you've just been upgraded from auction merchandise to research subject. You can't do this, she protested. I've already been sold to the Celestial Dragons. A regrettable bookkeeping error, Albedo replied with a cold smile. Your buyer will be compensated with another specimen. Ben had heard enough. His moral compass might have become more complicated in this world, but some lines remained clear. Ghost Freak floated down, positioning himself directly behind Albedo. Taking up slave trading, Captain. Not very marine-like behavior. Albedo whirled around, eyes widening as Ghost Freak materialized before him. Tennyson. Impossible, you're supposed to be patrolling the calm belt. Surprise, Ghost Freak rasped. Now step away from the cage. Instead of looking frightened, Albedo's expression shifted to calculating interest. Fascinating. I've never observed this transformation up close before. Intangibility, invisibility, none of the known devil fruits combine these properties so efficiently. I said step away from the cage, Ghost Freak repeated, voice dropping to a dangerous octave. Or what? You'll attack a fellow Marine officer. Albedo smiled thinly. That would be treason, Captain Tennyson. So is collaborating with pirates and kidnapping innocent people. Albedo waved dismissively. These are hardly innocent people. They're devil fruit users, walking weapons that need to be studied and controlled. By torturing them? By advancing science, Albedo countered. The world government has been trying to understand devil fruits for centuries with minimal progress. Project Ultimatrix is changing that. By working with Vilgax. A flash of surprise crossed Albedo's face. So you know more than I anticipated. No matter, Vilgax is merely a convenient tool. The real work is happening within the government itself. Ghost Freak drifted closer, his single eye narrowing. Who's really behind this, Albedo? Which Vice Admiral is pulling the strings? Albedo laughed. Vice Admiral? You think too small, Tennyson. This goes all the way to the top. A commotion from upstairs interrupted them, shouting, followed by the sound of running feet. Ah, Albedo said. That would be my security detail arriving. I triggered the silent alarm when you first appeared. Ghost Freak's eye widened. He'd walked right into a trap. Doesn't matter, he said, diving toward the cage. I'm not leaving without freeing these people. Actually, Albedo replied, reaching into his pocket, you are. He pulled out what looked like a modified Den Mushy and pressed a button. Instantly, Ghost Freak felt a painful shock course through his form, disrupting his intangibility. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest flickered red. What did you do? Ghost Freak gasped, his form destabilizing. Specific frequency disruption, Albedo explained, looking pleased with himself. We've been studying your transformations for some time, Tennyson. Each one has unique weaknesses. The Omnitrix timed out with a flash of red light, leaving Ben crouched on the floor in human form, his cover completely blown. Now, Albedo continued, we can do this the easy way, or I can have my men take you in for questioning about your unauthorized presence in a restricted area. Ben glared up at him. Since when is a slave auction house a restricted area for Marines? Since we started using it as a screening facility for research subjects, Albedo replied matter-of-factly. But I'm feeling generous today. Leave now, forget what you've seen, and I won't report your interference to Fleet Admiral Agregor. Footsteps pounded down the stairs as armed men in unmarked black uniforms appeared, not regular Marines, but some kind of special forces. Ben slowly raised his hands, mind racing through options. He could fight his way out, but that would confirm his opposition to whatever conspiracy was unfolding. Better to retreat and report to Gwen. Fine, he said, standing. But this isn't over. Oh, I'm counting on that, Albedo smiled thinly. In fact, I'm looking forward to our next encounter. As the armed men escorted Ben upstairs and out a side door, he caught one last glimpse of the woman in the cage, Coral, her eyes following him with desperate hope. He gave her a nearly imperceptible nod. He would be back. Outside, Ben was shoved roughly into an alley and left there, the guards returning to the auction house without a word. The message was clear, he was being allowed to leave only because someone higher up wanted him free for now. As he straightened his clothes and checked that the Omnitrix was still functioning, a voice spoke from the shadows. That was poorly executed, Captain Tennyson. Ben spun around to find Nico Robin leaning against the wall, arms crossed casually over her chest. Robin? What are you doing here? The same as you, I imagine. Investigating disappearing devil fruit users. She stepped forward. Though I managed to avoid getting caught. Yeah, well, not all of us can grow eyes and ears on walls, Ben muttered. Robin's lips quirked in amusement. True. But most can avoid walking into obvious traps. It wasn't obvious until I was already inside, Ben protested, then sighed. How much did you see? Enough to confirm our suspicions from Gallows Island. The world government is collecting devil fruit users for experimentation. And your former colleague is involved. Ben grimaced. He's not my colleague. More like a pain in my ass who happens to wear the same uniform. A distinction without a difference to those in the cages, Robin replied, her tone sharpening. Ben felt a flash of anger, then let it go. She was right. I need to get this information to Vice Admiral Gwen. And I need to get those people out of there, Robin countered. Their eyes met in a moment of understanding. Despite being on opposite sides of the law, their immediate goals aligned. My friend Kevin is meeting me at Shacky's bar at sundown, Ben said. He has underground contacts that might help. Robin considered this. The auction isn't scheduled until tomorrow. We have time to plan. Unless you prefer to attempt another solo rescue that ends with you being thrown out on your ass? Robin asked with a raised eyebrow. Ben couldn't help but laugh. When you put it that way. But aren't you worried about working with a Marine? I'm working with Ben Tennyson, who happens to wear a Marine uniform, she replied, echoing his earlier words. A distinction worth making, in this case. Shacky's bar sat in Grove 13, a known haven for those operating in the gray areas of the law. The owner, a former pirate herself, maintained a strict neutrality that made it one of the few places where Marines and pirates could occasionally share space without bloodshed. Ben and Robin arrived separately, with Ben entering first to join Kevin at a corner table. Robin followed 10 minutes later, causing Kevin to choke on his drink. You brought a straw hat here, he hissed after recovering. Are you insane? She found me after I got made by Albedo, Ben explained quickly, keeping his voice low. And she wants to help free the devil fruit users being held for auction. Kevin groaned. Of course she does. And let me guess, you promised we'd help. Not exactly, but... Ben trailed off at Kevin's glare. Robin settled into the seat beside Ben, seemingly unconcerned by Kevin's hostility. Your friend doesn't approve of our temporary alliance. My friend thinks Tennyson has a death wish, Kevin retorted. And dragging a high-profile pirate into our undercover operation isn't helping. Your undercover operation was compromised the moment Captain Albedo spotted Ben, Robin pointed out. And I have information you need. That got Kevin's attention. What information? Robin glanced around the bar, then leaned forward. The world government isn't just collecting devil fruit users from the underworld. They're targeting specific individuals with unique powers, including members of the Revolutionary Army. How do you know that? Ben asked. Because they've been hunting one of my crew as well. Robin's expression darkened. Chopper, our doctor. He possesses a unique zootype that allows for multiple transformations, not just the standard 3 forms. Ben and Kevin exchanged glances. Multiple transformations, like the Omnitrix. That's why you're really here, Ben realized. You're protecting your crew member. Robin nodded. And investigating why the world government suddenly wants transformation-type devil fruit users so badly. We might know, Kevin said slowly, looking to Ben for permission. Ben hesitated. Sharing information about Project Ultimatrix with a pirate, even one who'd helped before, was risky. But Robin had already proven herself an ally against Vilgax. They're working on something called the Ultimatrix, Ben explained. A way to enhance devil fruit powers, possibly combine them. Robin's eyes widened slightly. That aligns with what we've discovered. The Revolutionary Army reported similar experiments in their territory, attempts to extract what they call lineage factors from devil fruit users. Lineage factors? Kevin repeated. The genetic component that allows devil fruits to alter human biology, Robin explained. Essentially, they're trying to isolate what makes these powers work, then manipulate it. Like genetic engineering, Ben mused. But why involve Vilgax? He's a pirate, not a scientist. Perhaps for his fishman physiology knowledge, Robin suggested. Fishmen naturally have different lineage factors than humans. The pieces were starting to fit together, and Ben didn't like the picture they formed. If the world government could isolate and manipulate the genetic basis for devil fruit powers, they could potentially create soldiers with customized abilities, an army that could crush any opposition. We need to free those people at the auction house, Ben decided. Not just for their sake, but to disrupt whatever Albedo is planning. Kevin groaned. And how exactly do you propose we do that? Storm the place. In case you forgot, it's crawling with those black uniform guys who are definitely not regular Marines. CP0, Robin said quietly. Cypher Pole's elite division. If they're involved, this goes beyond even the fleet admiral's authority. Ben felt a chill. CP0 answered directly to the five elders, the mysterious rulers who stood above even the world government's official leaders. Then we need to be smarter about this, he said. A direct assault won't work. What about a distraction? Kevin suggested. Something big enough to clear the building. Robin tilted her head thoughtfully. The celestial dragons are attending tomorrow's auction. Their security protocols take precedence over everything else. So if something threatened them, Ben began. Everyone would focus on protecting the world nobles, leaving the holding cells vulnerable, Robin finished. Kevin looked between them. Great, except threatening celestial dragons is practically suicide. One call from them brings an admiral raining down hell. Ben grinned. Who said anything about actually threatening them? We just need to make security think there's a threat. Robin's lips curved into a smile. A false alarm. Exactly, Ben nodded. And I know just how to create one. Dawn broke over Sabaody Archipelago, sunlight filtering through the massive mangrove trees and creating dappled patterns on the ground. Ben adjusted the collar of his disguise, a server's uniform borrowed from the auction house staff quarters, and checked the Omnitrix. Fully charged and ready. This is still a terrible plan, Kevin muttered through the baby den mushy concealed in Ben's ear. If Albedo has tech that can disrupt the Omnitrix, he only had a disruptor for Ghost Freak, Ben whispered back. He can't have countermeasures for all my transformations. You hope. Ben ignored him, focusing on blending in with the other servers preparing the auction house for the day's event. From his position, he could see the main floor rapidly filling with wealthy buyers, including several celestial dragons in their distinctive bubble helmets. Robin, are you in position? He asked quietly. Yes, came her calm reply through the den mushy. I'm near the holding cells. Security is heavy, 4 guards, electronic locks. I'll need at least 3 minutes once the distraction begins. Kevin. In position with the boat at Grove 16. Escape route is clear, but we'll need to move fast before the lockdown spreads. Ben took a deep breath. All right. Distraction in 3, 2, 1. He slipped into a supply closet, quickly activated the Omnitrix, and transformed in a flash of green light. Where Ben had stood was now a small, frog-like creature barely a foot tall. Gray matter, he squeaked, his voice tiny but intelligent. Time for some improvisational electronics work. Using gray matter's enhanced intelligence and tiny size, he quickly rewired the auction house's security system, creating a false alarm trigger that he could activate remotely. Then, changing back to human form, he returned to the main floor just as Albedo arrived, accompanied by 2 men in black suits, CP0 agents, based on their expressionless white masks. Ben ducked his head, continuing to serve drinks to auction attendees while keeping an eye on Albedo. The marine scientist seemed agitated, constantly checking a pocket watch and scanning the crowd. Change of plans, Ben whispered. Albedo brought CP0 with him. Robin, can you still reach the cells? Yes, but we'll need a bigger distraction. Ben thought quickly. Kevin, that modified smoke bomb you brought, do you have it ready? Yeah, but that's supposed to be our cover for the escape. Change of plans. I need you to set it off near the east entrance in 2 minutes. Kevin sighed audibly. Fine, but you owe me another one for the escape. I'll think of something, Ben promised, then noticed movement near the stage. Hold on, Albedo's making an announcement. The marine scientist had stepped up to the podium, tapping the microphone to get the audience's attention. The assembled wealthy buyers, including the celestial dragons, quieted down. Distinguished guests, Albedo began, his voice silky smooth. Before we begin today's auction, I'd like to highlight a special collection available only to our most exclusive clientele. He gestured, and a screen behind him lit up with images of various devil fruit users, including Coral, the woman Ben had seen in the holding cells. These specimens represent the finest examples of devil fruit compatibility in the known world, Albedo continued. Each has been thoroughly tested and found to possess unique lineage factors of particular interest to collectors with scientific curiosity. Ben felt sick. They weren't even pretending anymore, these people were being sold as lab rats. The bidding for these special items will begin at 100 million berries, Albedo announced, causing excited murmurs among the audience. And for our world noble guests, we have prepared a private viewing in the secure lounge after the main auction. That confirmed it, the celestial dragons were involved in Project Ultimatrix. Which meant the 5 elders had to know. Kevin, Ben whispered urgently. Set off the smoke bomb now. And make it good. Seconds later, an explosion rocked the east entrance. But instead of the expected smoke, a massive fireball erupted, setting part of the building ablaze. What the hell, Kevin? Ben hissed. That wasn't me. Kevin's voice crackled with genuine surprise. Something else just exploded. Chaos erupted as security personnel rushed to evacuate the celestial dragons. Ben used the confusion to activate the Omnitrix again, this time transforming into a bulky, armor-plated alien. Cannonbolt. He rolled into a protective sphere and barreled toward the door leading to the holding cells, smashing through guards and barriers alike. Behind him, he could hear Albedo shouting orders, but the commotion from the explosion drowned out most of the words. Cannonbolt crashed through the final door to find Robin already working on the cell locks, multiple arms sprouting from the walls to speed the process. What happened? She asked without looking up. Someone else had the same idea, Cannonbolt replied, unfurling to his bipedal form. Buildings on fire. We need to move fast. Almost done, Robin replied, her sprouted hands clicking open the final locks. There are 15 prisoners total. The cell doors swung open, and terrified but hopeful faces emerged. Coral was among them, her scaled skin glinting in the dim light. You came back, she said to Ben, recognition in her eyes despite his transformed state. Told you I would, Cannonbolt replied. Now everyone stay close. This is going to be a bumpy ride. He curled back into a sphere, positioning himself at the front of the group. Robin, get them behind me. I'll clear a path to the west exit. Robin nodded, using her powers to guide the prisoners. Once they were ready, Cannonbolt smashed through the remaining barriers, rolling up the stairs and into the main auction hall. The scene that greeted them was pure chaos. Half the building was engulfed in flames, and panicked buyers were fighting each other to reach the exits. Security forces were focused entirely on extracting the celestial dragons, leaving the auction floor unguarded. Now's our chance, Cannonbolt called back to the group. Stay together and, a searing pain cut through his sentence as something struck the Omnitrix symbol on his forehead. Cannonbolt roared in agony as his transformation destabilized, forcing him back to human form in a flash of red light. Ben fell to his knees, the Omnitrix sparking and hissing on his wrist. Through watering eyes, he saw Albedo approaching, holding what looked like a modified rifle. Transformation Disruptor, Albedo explained, a triumphant smile on his face. Designed specifically for you, Tennyson. Did you really think I wouldn't be prepared after yesterday? Robin stepped forward, arms crossed in her fighting stance. Separate strings. Multiple arms sprouted from Albedo's body, attempting to bend him backward. But before they could take hold, one of the CP0 agents appeared beside him, moving with impossible speed. The agent struck each sprouted limb, causing them to dissolve in a shower of flower petals. Robin gasped in pain, staggering back. 6 Powers Technique. Indeed, the agent said, voice muffled behind his mask. The power of the world government is not to be trifled with, demon child. Ben struggled to his feet, positioned protectively in front of the freed prisoners. The Omnitrix was still recharging, its face glowing red. Without his transformations, he was just a regular human against CP0, practically suicide. Kevin, he hissed into his communicator. We need that backup plan now. Working on it, came Kevin's strained reply, accompanied by sounds of fighting. Got some unwanted company at the boat. Albedo stepped closer, rifle still trained on Ben. I must thank you, Tennyson. You've saved me the trouble of transporting these subjects. His gaze shifted to Robin. And bringing Nico Robin directly to us. That deserves a promotion. What do you want with them? Ben demanded, playing for time as the Omnitrix slowly recharged. With them? Merely their lineage factors, Albedo replied casually. With you and Miss Robin? Something far more valuable. The CP0 agent beside him nodded. The shapeshifter and the demon child. Both high-priority acquisitions for Project Ultimatrix. Robin's eyes narrowed. You've been targeting us specifically. Of course, Albedo confirmed. Your devil fruit powers are unique, manifestation of multiple body parts simultaneously, independent control of each. And Tennyson's ability to transform into multiple distinct creatures. Priceless. It's not a devil fruit, Ben said, a desperate plan forming. And you know it. Albedo's smile faltered slightly. A technicality. Whatever the source, your power will serve the world government's interests. You mean the 5 elders' interests, Ben countered. Does Fleet Admiral Egregor even know what you're doing? A flicker of unease crossed Albedo's face. The Fleet Admiral understands the necessity of Project Ultimatrix. Does he understand your kidnapping children? Torturing civilians? Ben pressed. Or is that just the necessary evil part you conveniently leave out of the reports? The Omnitrix gave a soft beep, its face turning green again. Ben felt a surge of hope but kept his wrist casually at his side, out of Albedo's direct line of sight. Enough talk, the CP0 agent cut in. Secure the subjects. Kill anyone who resists. Behind them, the fire had spread to engulf most of the auction hall. The heat was becoming unbearable, and smoke filled the air. Perfect cover for what Ben had in mind. Last chance, Albedo, he called out. Let these people go, and I'll come quietly. You're hardly in a position to negotiate, Tennyson. Ben smiled. I disagree. In one fluid motion, he activated the Omnitrix and slammed down on the dial. Green light flashed, temporarily blinding everyone in the smoky room. When it faded, a massive moth-like creature with 4 wings stood where Ben had been. Big Chill, the alien announced in an eerie, raspy voice. Before Albedo could react, Big Chill exhaled a massive breath of freezing vapor, instantly creating a wall of ice between the freed prisoners and their captors. Robin, get them out of here. Big Chill commanded, then phased through the solid floor, disappearing from sight. Robin didn't hesitate. Using her powers, she created a chain of arms along the walls, guiding the prisoners toward a side exit Kevin had identified during their planning. Behind them, Albedo was already firing his disruption rifle at the ice wall, trying to break through. Big Chill phased up through the floor behind Albedo and the CP0 agents, catching them by surprise. Looking for me? The CP0 agent whirled with inhuman speed, launching a punch that would shatter concrete. But his fist passed harmlessly through Big Chill's intangible form. Too slow, Big Chill taunted, then exhaled another freezing breath, encasing the agent in a block of ice up to his neck. Albedo turned his rifle on Big Chill, but the moth-like alien was already moving, weaving through the air with surprising agility despite his size. Another breath of freezing air knocked the weapon from Albedo's hands, covering it in frost. "Your disruptor only works on direct hits to the Omnitrix symbol," Big Chill observed. "And only if you can actually hit me." Albedo's face contorted with rage. "You think you've won? This is just one facility of dozens. Even if these subjects escape, we'll find more." "Maybe," Big Chill conceded, hovering just out of reach. "But today, these people go free. And now I know exactly what you're planning." "You know nothing," Albedo spat. "Project Ultimatrix is beyond your comprehension." "Try me," Big Chill challenged, hoping to extract more information. Instead of answering, Albedo reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. "Perhaps it's time you witnessed the future you're fighting against." He pressed a button, and a blinding white light enveloped him. When it faded, Ben found himself facing himself. Or rather, a perfect copy of his Four Arms transformation, except with inverted colors, white instead of red, silver instead of black. "What the hell?" Big Chill gasped. The white Four Arms grinned with Albedo's expression. "Surprised, Tennyson? Did you really think you were the only one with transformation abilities in this world?" The massive four-armed creature lunged forward with shocking speed, managing to grab Big Chill despite his intangibility. Big Chill felt a painful shock run through his system, similar to what had happened with Ghost Freak, but stronger. "Negative transformation field," Albedo explained, his voice deeper in this form but unmistakably his. "Cancels out your phasing abilities. One of many improvements in the Ultimatrix design." He hurled Big Chill into a burning section of the auction hall. The moth-like alien crashed through flaming debris, his natural resistance to temperature extremes protecting him from the worst of the fire. "How?" Big Chill demanded, recovering his flight. "How did you copy my transformation?" "I didn't copy it," Albedo replied, advancing through the flames. "I improved it. The Ultimatrix doesn't just replicate powers, it enhances them. Evolves them to their ultimate potential." He demonstrated by slamming all four fists into the ground, creating a shockwave that sent Big Chill tumbling through the air. The building around them groaned, structural supports beginning to fail. "This is just a prototype," Albedo continued. "Once we've integrated the lineage factors from our test subjects, the final version will be capable of sampling and improving any devil fruit power in existence." Big Chill recovered, mind racing. If Albedo truly had a device that could copy and enhance transformation abilities, the balance of power in this world would shift dramatically. The world government would become virtually unstoppable. "And let me guess," Big Chill said, buying time as he assessed his options, "you'll control who gets access to this power." "Precisely." Albedo's four-armed form began to change again, shifting and growing until he resembled Ben's heat blast transformation, but again with inverted colors, white flames instead of red. The five elders understand that power must be carefully managed. White flames erupted from Albedo's hands, forcing Big Chill to dodge. Despite his resistance to temperature extremes, he could feel the increased heat of these ultimate flames. "The auction house is collapsing," Big Chill observed as more support beams failed around them. "This fight is pointless, Albedo. We'll both be buried." "A small price to pay for capturing you," Albedo replied, shooting another blast of white fire. "Your Omnitrix is the key to perfecting the Ultimatrix. With it, we can bypass years of research." The ceiling above them cracked ominously. Big Chill made a split-second decision and phased upward through it, heading for the roof. As expected, Albedo followed, changing forms again to a negative version of XLR-8. They emerged onto the burning auction house's roof, smoke billowing around them. In the distance, Ben could see a commotion at the docks, presumably Kevin extracting the escaped prisoners. "It's over, Albedo," Big Chill said, turning to face his pursuer. "Robin and the others are already gone." Albedo's XLR-8 form shifted again, this time to a negative version of Diamond Head. They were never the primary target, Tennyson. You were. He fired a barrage of crystal shards that Big Chill barely dodged. One struck his wing, drawing a cry of pain. The Omnitrix is wasted on you, Albedo continued, advancing across the roof. You use it to play hero when it could revolutionize this world. By giving the world government unlimited power? Big Chill retorted. No thanks. By bringing order to chaos. Albedo shouted. This world is ruled by pirates and criminals. The Navy struggles to maintain even basic stability. With the Ultimatrix, we could end the Great Pirate Era once and for all. Below them, the building gave a final groan before beginning to collapse inward. The roof tilted dangerously, forcing both of them to adjust their footing. And what happens to everyone who disagrees with the world government's idea of order? Big Chill demanded. People like the O'Harans? Like the citizens of Flevance? You just wipe them out. Albedo's expression hardened. Sacrifices for the greater good. That's where we differ, Big Chill replied. I don't believe in sacrificing innocence. Not for any cause. The roof beneath them suddenly gave way. Big Chill took flight instantly, but Albedo's diamond head form was too heavy. He plummeted into the inferno below, a cry of rage echoing as he fell. Big Chill hesitated, hovering above the collapsing building. Despite everything, Albedo was still technically a Marine, leaving him to die felt wrong. With a frustrated sigh, Big Chill dove into the flames, searching for the fallen scientist. He found Albedo trapped under a fallen beam, his diamond head form reverting to human. Why? Albedo coughed as Big Chill phased him through the debris. Because that's what heroes do, Big Chill replied simply, carrying Albedo up through the collapsing structure and out into open air. He set the scientist down at a safe distance just as the auction house completely collapsed in a roar of flame and destruction. Emergency response teams were already arriving, along with Marine forces. This changes nothing, Albedo said, clutching what appeared to be a damaged version of the Omnitrix on his wrist. Project Ultimatrix will continue. Then I'll continue stopping it, Big Chill promised. The Omnitrix symbol on his chest beeped red, time running out. Big Chill took to the air quickly, knowing he needed to be far away before reverting to human form. This isn't over, Tennyson. Albedo called after him. Big Chill glanced back one last time. It never is. Ben found Kevin, Robin, and the freed captives at the arranged meeting point, a hidden cove on the far side of the archipelago where a small fishing boat was waiting. Cutting it close, Tennyson, Kevin remarked as Ben landed and transformed back to human form. We were about to leave without you. Got delayed by Albedo, Ben replied, then stared in shock at Kevin's appearance. The former pirate was covered in cuts and bruises, with a particularly nasty gash across his shoulder. What happened to you? CP0 happened, Kevin grunted. Bastards were waiting at our original escape boat. Had to fight our way out and steal this one instead. Robin approached, looking relatively unscathed but tired. The prisoners are all aboard and tended to. Coral is helping navigate, she knows these waters well. Ben nodded gratefully. Any pursuit? Not yet, Robin replied. The chaos at the auction house has their attention for now. But it won't last long. Then we need to move, Ben decided. Where's the nearest safe harbor? Water 7, Kevin suggested. Iceberg owes me a favor. He could hide these people until we figure out what to do with them. Water 7 is too obvious, Robin countered. The Navy will look there first. Ben considered their options. What about Drum Island? It's remote, politically neutral since joining the world government, and has a world-class doctor who might be able to help these people recover. Dr. Correja, Robin nodded. A wise choice. And Drum's winter climate would make naval pursuit difficult. Kevin shrugged. Your call, Tennyson. But wherever we're going, we should start moving. Those CP0 guys don't give up easily. As they boarded the fishing boat, Ben pulled Robin aside. Albedo had a copy of the Omnitrix, he told her quietly. He could transform like me, but his forms were different. Stronger, somehow. Robin's eyes widened slightly. The Ultimatrix he mentioned. Yeah. He said it doesn't just copy powers, it enhances them. Evolves them to their ultimate potential. That's consistent with the research I glimpsed in the laboratory, Robin confirmed. They're not just trying to replicate devil fruit powers, they're trying to perfect them. Ben glanced at the freed prisoners, many still bearing visible wounds from their captivity. And they don't care who suffers in the process. The world government rarely does, Robin said softly, a shadow of old pain crossing her face. Ben remembered her history, the sole survivor of O'Hara, hunted since childhood for the crime of seeking forbidden knowledge. In many ways, she understood the world government's ruthlessness better than anyone. We need to contact Gwen, he said as the boat pulled away from shore. She needs to know about Albedo's device and the CP0 involvement. Is she someone you trust absolutely? Robin asked, studying him intently. Ben met her gaze. With my life. She's family. Robin seemed to accept this. Very well. But be careful what you communicate through Den Den Mushi. The world government monitors all transmissions. Then we'll have to deliver the message in person, Ben decided. After we get these people safely to Drum Island. As the boat picked up speed, leaving the smoke-filled skyline of Sabaody behind, Ben stared out at the endless ocean. The simple undercover mission had become something far more complicated, and dangerous. Albedo's Ultimatrix, CP0's involvement, the Five Elders' apparent endorsement of human experimentation. The conspiracy went deeper than he'd imagined. And somewhere at the center of it all was the truth about the Omnitrix and its connection to this world. You're worried, Robin observed, joining him at the railing. Wouldn't you be? Ben replied. The most powerful organization in the world wants to dissect me for my lineage factors. And yet you saved Albedo from the fire, she noted. After everything he's done. Ben shrugged. It's what I do. Doesn't matter what world I'm in. Robin studied him with those penetrating blue eyes that seemed to see too much. You're a strange Marine, Ben Tennyson. So I've been told. I mean it as a compliment, she clarified. Most who wear that uniform follow orders without question. You follow something else. Justice? Ben suggested. Compassion, Robin corrected. Even for your enemies. It's rare. Before Ben could respond, Kevin called from the helm. Hey, lovebirds. Less philosophical discussion, more watching for marine ships, okay. Ben felt his face flush, but Robin merely smiled enigmatically before walking away to check on the freed prisoners. Kevin snickered as Ben joined him at the helm. Making friends with pirates now, Tennyson. Gwen's gonna love that. She's helping us, Ben replied defensively. And she knows more about the world government's secrets than most Marines. Aha, Kevin said skeptically. Just be careful. Getting involved with the demon child of O'Hara isn't exactly low profile. Says the guy who dated a Halfanidite plumber. Fair point, Kevin conceded with a grin. But seriously, what's the plan here? We rescue these people, take them to Drum Island, then what? The world government will just grab more devil fruit users. Ben's expression hardened. Not if we expose what they're doing. Robin collected documents from the lab, and I got Albedo to confirm the Five Elders are behind Project Ultimatrix. If we can get that information to the right people. Like who? The newspapers? The Revolutionary Army? Kevin shook his head. The world government controls the information flow, and anyone powerful enough to challenge them is already on their hit list. Then we hit them where it hurts, Ben decided. We find their main research facility and shut it down, permanently. Kevin raised an eyebrow. Now you're talking my language. But how do we find it? Ben glanced at the documents Robin had gathered. We start with these. And then we talk to the one person who might know where the heart of Project Ultimatrix is located. Vilgax, Kevin realized. You think he'll just tell us? No, Ben admitted. But I think we can make him an offer he can't refuse. As they sailed toward Drum Island, Ben couldn't shake the feeling that they were moving towards something bigger than just a corrupt government project. The way Albedo had talked about the Omnitrix, the specific interest in transformation powers, the ancient ruins Gwen had mentioned. It all connected somehow. And he was determined to find out how. The journey to Drum Island took nearly a week, during which they narrowly avoided marine patrols 3 times. The small fishing boat wasn't designed for open sea travel, making the voyage uncomfortable and dangerous. For Ben, the time provided an opportunity to learn more about their rescued passengers. Each had a story, some were pirates, others civilians who'd simply had the misfortune of eating a devil fruit. Coral, the fish fruit user, had been a researcher studying marine biology when she accidentally ate what she thought was an exotic fish. I was cataloging specimens, she explained as they sat around the boat's small galley table. The fruit was mixed in with my lunch. One bite, and suddenly I was growing scales and could breathe underwater. That's actually pretty useful for a marine biologist, Ben observed. Coral smiled sadly. It was, until the world government declared devil fruit research restricted to authorized personnel only. My university lost funding, my papers were confiscated, and eventually, bounty hunters tracked me down. Because you knew too much? Robin asked. Because I was asking too many questions, Coral corrected. About why certain devil fruits were being classified as security threats when they had no combat applications. Ben exchanged glances with Robin. The pattern was becoming clearer, the world government wasn't just collecting powerful devil fruit users, but also those who might expose their plans. On the 8th day, the distinctive winter island came into view, a cylindrical mountain rising from the sea, surrounded by a ring of smaller peaks. Despite the spring season, snow covered every surface. Drum Kingdom, Robin announced. Known for its medical expertise and 100% recovery rate under Dr. Correja. And its extremely cold temperatures, Kevin added, shivering despite his heavy coat. Why couldn't we pick a nice summer island? Because summer islands don't have natural defenses against naval pursuit, Ben reminded him. Plus, Dr. Correja is the best chance these people have for recovery. They docked at a small fishing village rather than the main port, hoping to avoid official notice. The villagers were initially suspicious but became more welcoming when Robin explained they needed to reach Dr. Correja on urgent medical business. You'll need a guide to reach the castle, an elderly villager told them, pointing to the mountain peak where a structure was just visible. The paths are treacherous this time of year. I know the way, Robin assured him. We've been here before. They arranged for the freed prisoners to stay in the village temporarily while Ben, Robin, and Kevin made the ascent to Correja's castle. The climb was brutal, steep, icy, and exposed to bitter winds that cut through their clothing like knives. Remind me again why we didn't just call ahead on the Den Mushi. Kevin complained, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. Because the Marines monitor all communications to and from Drum Island, Robin explained patiently. Dr. Correja is officially a government-sanctioned physician now. Doesn't mean she likes them, Ben added. From what I've heard, she only accepted the position to gain access to medical research that was previously restricted. Robin nodded. She's independent-minded. And she treated Chopper like a son before he joined our crew. She'll help us if anyone will. The castle grew larger as they approached, its ancient stone walls partially covered in ice and snow. Despite its age, light gleamed from several windows, and smoke rose from multiple chimneys. Before they could reach the main gate, a voice called out from above. That's far enough. State your business or turn back. They looked up to see a small figure perched on the battlements, aiming what appeared to be a rifle at them. Dr. Kureha. Robin called back. It's Nico Robin, from the Straw Hat Pirates. We need your help. There was a pause, then the figure lowered the weapon. Nico Robin. What's Chopper's mother doing here without him? And with a Marine, no less. Ben started in surprise. Despite his disguise, the old doctor had recognized him somehow. How did you, he began. The way you move, boy, Kureha cut him off. Marines have a particular stick-up-the-ass posture that's unmistakable. Now get inside before you freeze to death. Explanations can wait until you're warmed up. The massive gates creaked open just enough to admit them. Inside, the castle was surprisingly warm and well-lit, with modern medical equipment contrasting starkly with the medieval architecture. Dr. Kureha herself was a surprise to Ben. Despite being allegedly 140 years old, she moved with the vigor of someone decades younger. Dressed in a revealing outfit that defied both her age and the climate, she fixed them with a penetrating stare that reminded Ben uncomfortably of his grandmother Verdona. So, she said after they'd explained the situation, the world government is experimenting on devil fruit users, and you've rescued some of their test subjects. That's the simplified version, Ben confirmed. And now you want me to treat these people and hide them from the Marines? Kureha took a long swig from a bottle of plum sake. You realize that would make me an accomplice to your little rebellion? They need medical help, Robin said simply. You're the best. Kureha cackled. Flattery. I like it. Her expression turned serious. But why come to me? There are other doctors, other islands. Because you understand devil fruit physiology better than anyone, Ben replied. You trained Tony Chopper, after all. And, Robin added, because you have no love for the world government, despite your official position. Kureha studied them for a long moment, then sighed. Bring them up. My apprentices and I will do what we can. But. She raised a bony finger. You three will help with treatment. I'm a doctor, not a charity. Agreed, Ben said quickly. And thank you. Don't thank me yet, Kureha warned. The world government will come looking eventually. When they do, you'd better have a damn good escape plan. As they left to retrieve the others, Kevin muttered, friendly old lady. She's actually being quite accommodating, Robin replied with a small smile. Usually, she demands payment up front. The payment is us risking our necks when the Marines show up, Kevin pointed out. Ben shook his head. She's helping because it's the right thing to do. Just like us. Kevin snorted. Speak for yourself. I'm helping because Gwen would kick my ass if I left you to handle this alone. Despite his complaints, Kevin took charge of organizing the villagers to help transport the weakest patients up the mountain. By nightfall, all 15 rescued devil fruit users were settled in the castle's infirmary, being examined by Kureha and her staff. Ben found himself assisting the elderly doctor as she treated Coral, whose fish-like physiology presented unique challenges in the cold, dry mountain air. You're dehydrated at the cellular level, Kureha told the young researcher. Your devil fruit has modified your tissues to require more water than a normal human. Those bastards at the research facility knew this and deliberately kept you slightly dehydrated to weaken your powers. Coral's eyes widened. How can you know that just from an examination? Kureha smiled grimly. Because I've seen it before. The world government has been experimenting with devil fruits for decades, usually in secret. But sometimes, their test subjects escape. She glanced meaningfully at Ben. Just like sometimes, people with strange powers appear out of nowhere, claiming they're devil fruit users when they're nothing of the sort. Ben froze in the act of handing her a medical instrument. I don't know what you mean. Save it, boy, Kureha snapped. I've been around long enough to recognize a devil fruit when I see one, and when I don't. Whatever that device on your wrist is, it's not from this world. Before Ben could respond, an alarm blared throughout the castle. Kevin burst into the infirmary, his expression grim. "Marine ships," he announced. 3 of them, approaching the island from the north. "That was fast," Robin observed, joining them from another treatment room. "Even for CP0. "It's not CP0, Kevin replied, his expression darkening further. "It's worse. The lead ship is flying a vice admiral's flag." Ben felt his blood run cold. "Which one?" "Not Gwen," Kevin assured him quickly. "But it's someone high-ranking. Big guy, uses a sword staff." "Vice Admiral Enigmo," Robin identified immediately. "One of Fleet Admiral Akainu's most loyal officers. Known for his ruthlessness and creative interpretation of orders." Dr. Correia cursed. "They're not here for a medical consultation, that's for damn sure." Ben's mind raced. They couldn't move the patients, many were still too weak. Fighting a vice admiral and 3 marine ships was suicide, even with his Omnitrix. "We need a distraction," he decided. "Something to keep them occupied while we figure out an escape plan." "What kind of distraction?" Kevin asked. Ben smiled grimly. "The kind that only a rogue marine captain can provide." Vice Admiral Enigmo stood on the deck of his flagship, 8 arms crossed over his chest as he surveyed Drum Island through a spyglass. His spider-like appendages, the result of his modified Zoan-type devil fruit, twitched with anticipation. Captain Tennyson's boat was reported docking at the eastern village, his executive officer reported. Local informants confirm he ascended to Dr. Correia's castle with the Straw Hat Pirates archaeologist and an unidentified man. "And the escaped research subjects?" Enigmo asked, his voice cold and precise. "Unconfirmed, sir, but villagers reported seeing injured individuals being transported up the mountain." Enigmo lowered his spyglass. "Prepare 3 squads for immediate deployment. I want the castle surrounded before dawn." "Yes, sir." The officer saluted and turned to relay the orders. "And Lieutenant," Enigmo added, "remind the men that Captain Tennyson and the research subjects are to be taken alive. The others are expendable. Even Dr. Correia, sir. She has world government protection as Drum's chief medical officer." Enigmo's expression didn't change. "Accidents happen in combat situations, Lieutenant. Perhaps the elderly doctor tried to intervene and was tragically caught in the crossfire." "Understood, sir." As preparations for the landing parties began, a lookout called from the crow's nest. "Sir. Unidentified object approaching from the island. Moving fast." Enigmo raised his spyglass again, focusing on a strange red blur rocketing toward the ships across the snowy landscape. As it drew closer, he could make out a humanoid figure with 4 arms, running on all 4s with incredible speed. "Tennyson," he muttered. "All hands, battle stations. Prepare to intercept." The red figure reached the shore and, without slowing, leaped into the air in an impossible arc that carried it directly toward the flagship. As it descended toward the deck, Enigmo drew his sword staff, 8 arms moving in perfect coordination. The impact when 4 arms landed shook the entire ship, cracking the deck planks and sending Marines tumbling. The massive red alien straightened to its full height, towering over even the Vice Admiral. "Vice Admiral Enigmo," 4 arms greeted, cracking all 4 sets of knuckles. "Fancy meeting you here. Taking a ski vacation?" "Captain Tennyson," Enigmo replied coolly. "Or should I say, former captain. Your unauthorized actions at Sabaody Archipelago constitute treason against the world government." "Funny thing about that," 4 arms replied. "I was just about to report some treason myself. Something about illegal human experimentation, CP0 black operations, and a certain Project Ultimatrix." Enigmo's eyes narrowed behind his sunglasses. "You meddle in matters beyond your understanding, Tennyson." "Try me," 4 arms challenged. "I understand plenty. Like how the 5 elders authorized experiments on children to create enhanced devil fruit powers." How CP0 is kidnapping innocent people and selling them as research subjects. How marine scientists like Albedo are creating weapons that could destabilize the entire world. For the greater good, Enigmo replied without a hint of remorse. The world is changing, Tennyson. Pirates grow stronger. Revolutionary armies gather. The Navy must evolve or be rendered obsolete. By becoming the very evil you're supposed to fight. For arms demanded. That's not evolution, that's corruption. Enigmo's patience visibly ended. Enough talk. Men, subdue the traitor. Marines swarmed forward, but 4 Arms was ready. With a mighty clap of all 4 hands, he created a shockwave that sent them flying back. Then he charged directly at Enigmo. The Vice Admiral moved with surprising speed for his size, his 8 arms wielding his sword staff with deadly precision. 4 Arms blocked most strikes, but several got through, leaving cuts across his tough red hide. You're outmatched, Tennyson, Enigmo taunted as they exchanged blows. Even your transformations can't match a Vice Admiral's power. 4 Arms grinned despite the pain. Who said I was trying to win? Realization dawned in Enigmo's eyes too late. 4 Arms had positioned himself near the ship's main mast. With a powerful uppercut, he shattered the massive wooden beam, sending it crashing down across the deck. Chaos erupted as sailors scrambled to secure loose rigging and prevent the damaged mast from capsizing the vessel. 4 Arms used the distraction to leap to the second marine ship, where he immediately began wreaking similar havoc. He's trying to cripple our vessels. Enigmo roared. Stop him at all costs. Marines opened fire with rifles and cannons, but 4 Arms moved too quickly, jumping between ships and causing maximum damage to their sailing capabilities. He wasn't trying to hurt the Marines, just disable their ability to reach the island. After destroying the rudder chain on the 3rd ship, 4 Arms leaped back to shore and transformed in a flash of green light. In his place stood a pterodactyl-like creature with a jetpack-like protrusion on its back. Astrodactyl, he screeched, then took to the air on jets of stellar energy, squawking triumphantly as he soared back toward the mountain castle. Behind him, Enigmo stood amid the wreckage of his flagship's deck, rage contorting his features. Prepare the longboats, he ordered. We'll row to shore if necessary. Tennyson will not escape. Back at the castle, Kevin and Robin had used the distraction to prepare their escape plan. Dr. Correja had revealed a secret: the castle connected to an extensive cave system that ran through the mountain. They were used centuries ago when this castle was under siege, she explained, leading them through narrow stone passages. They emerge at various points around the island, including near the western shore, opposite from where the Marines landed. And you're sure they'll still lead us out? Kevin asked, eyeing the ancient tunnels skeptically. Of course, Correja snapped. I've maintained them myself. How do you think I get medical supplies during the winter when the mountain paths are impassable? They had moved the patients into the tunnel system, with Correja's apprentices guiding them toward the western exit. Robin stayed with them, using her powers to create chains of arms along the walls that could pass supplies and assist the weakest patients. Kevin waited at the castle entrance for Ben's return, having absorbed the properties of a metal door hinge to strengthen his body. When Astrodactyl finally landed in the courtyard, Kevin was already loading the last of their supplies onto a makeshift sled. About time, he grumbled as Ben transformed back to human form. Did you sink the marine ships? Disabled them, Ben corrected, breathing heavily from exertion. Broke masts, rudders, and anchor chains. They'll have to row to shore, which buys us a few hours at most. Then we better move, Kevin replied. Correja's got everyone in the tunnel system. Exit point is a small cove with a fishing village. Robin thinks we can commandeer a boat there. Ben nodded, then winced as pain shot through his side. Looking down, he noticed blood seeping through his coat where one of Enigmo's sword strikes had connected. You're hit, Kevin observed. It's nothing, Ben dismissed. Enigmo's faster than he looks. Correja should look at that before we leave. No time, Ben insisted. We need to move now. They entered the tunnel system, sealing the entrance behind them. The passages were narrow but tall enough to walk upright, with periodic antechambers where Kureha had stored supplies and emergency equipment. They caught up with the main group at one of these larger chambers, where Robin and Kureha were treating those struggling with the journey. Ben noticed Coral among them, her scaled skin pale and dry-looking. The air in these tunnels is too dry for her, Kureha explained when she saw Ben looking. Fishman physiology requires higher humidity. How much farther to the exit? Ben asked. About 2 miles, Kureha replied. But at this pace, with the injured, it'll take at least 3 more hours. Ben did the math in his head. Not fast enough. Enigmo will reach the castle within an hour, and when he finds it empty, he'll start searching the island. Then we split up, Kevin suggested. The strongest patients continue with Robin and me. Ben, you and Kureha take the ones who need medical attention and find a place to hide until we can send help. Too risky, Ben argued. If Enigmo finds any of us, he'll torture our location out of them. We need to stay together. Robin approached, her expression thoughtful. There is another option. These tunnels have multiple branches. We could create a false trail for the Marines to follow while the main group continues to the exit. A decoy, Ben realized. But who'd be the bait? I would, Robin replied simply. With my powers, I can lay a convincing trail and still escape if discovered. No, Ben shook his head firmly. I won't let you risk yourself like that. It's not your decision to make, Robin countered. These people need time, and I can provide it. Before Ben could argue further, Kevin cut in. How about a third option? We collapse sections of the tunnel behind us. I can do it with my absorption abilities, turn to stone, break the support beams. Dr. Kureha considered this. Risky. These tunnels are ancient. Start collapsing sections, and you might bring the whole system down. What about a controlled cave-in? Ben suggested, an idea forming. Not to block the tunnels completely, but to slow down pursuit. I have a transformation that could help with that. In the end, they compromised. The main group would continue toward the exit with Kevin and Robin, while Ben would stay behind to create a series of delayed obstacles along the tunnel. Dr. Kureha insisted on remaining with him to treat his wound. Stubborn old woman, Ben muttered as she cleaned the cut from Enigmo's sword. Reckless young fool, she retorted, applying a stinging antiseptic that made him hiss. This would have become infected in these tunnels. Then where would your heroics get you? Ben couldn't argue with that. As she worked, he studied her weathered face. You recognized I wasn't a devil fruit user right away. How? Kureha's hands paused momentarily. I've been alive a very long time, boy. Seen things most people wouldn't believe. Including visitors from beyond our world. Ben stared at her in shock. You've met others like me? Not exactly like you, she replied cryptically. But those who didn't belong to our reality? Yes. When? Who were they? Kureha finished bandaging his wound before answering. It was over 50 years ago. A man calling himself Paradox appeared on Drum Island during a terrible plague. He helped me develop a cure, then disappeared as mysteriously as he arrived. Ben felt like he'd been struck by lightning. Paradox. Professor Paradox. You know him? Kureha asked sharply. He's, from my world, Ben explained, mind racing. A time traveler who helped me on several occasions. Kureha nodded as if this confirmed something. He said he was following timeline disturbances. Said our world wasn't supposed to connect with others, but something was forcing bridges between realities. Did he say what was causing it? Only that it involved ancient technology and modern arrogance, Kureha replied. Now, enough questions. You have tunnels to collapse, and I have patients to check on before we move again. As she walked away, Ben sat in stunned silence. Professor Paradox had been to this world, 50 years ago. And according to Kureha, he'd been investigating connections between realities. Could that be related to why Ben, Gwen, and Kevin had been pulled into this world? And was it connected to Project Ultimatrix somehow? The questions would have to wait. Right now, his priority was ensuring everyone escaped safely. Ben activated the Omnitrix, transforming into a stocky crystalline alien. Diamond Head. Using his crystal generation powers, Diamond Head created a series of support structures at key junctions in the tunnel, supports designed to look solid but that would collapse under minimal pressure. It was delicate work, requiring precision he rarely needed in combat. Once satisfied with his traps, he rejoined Dr. Kureha, who had prepared the remaining patients for travel. The first group should be halfway to the exit by now, she informed him. If we move quickly, we can catch up before they reach the western village. Diamond Head nodded, then transformed back into Ben. Let's go. They moved through the tunnels at a steady pace, Ben occasionally checking behind them for signs of pursuit. After about an hour, they heard the first distant rumble, one of his crystal supports collapsing, hopefully delaying any Marines following their trail. Sounds like your traps are working, Kureha observed. For now, Ben agreed. But Enigmo won't give up easily. He seemed personally invested in capturing me. Of course he is, Kureha scoffed. You're the most valuable devil fruit user they've encountered. At least, that's what they believe you are. Before Ben could respond, a more worrying sound reached them, voices ahead. Human voices, but not Robin's or Kevin's. Ben signaled for silence, then crept forward to investigate. Around a bend in the tunnel, he found himself staring at a Marine patrol, at least 10 soldiers setting up what appeared to be a checkpoint. How did they get ahead of us? He whispered as he rejoined Kureha. These tunnels connect to others beneath the island, she explained grimly. If they found one of the secondary entrances, then they could be waiting at the exit too, Ben realized. We need to warn Kevin and the others. He reached for the baby Den mushy in his pocket, only to find it unresponsive. The tunnels were too deep for a signal. There's another branch about 50 yards back, Kureha said. It's longer but connects to the same exit tunnel eventually. Ben nodded. Lead the way. They backtracked quietly, helping the weakest patients move as silently as possible. The alternative tunnel was narrower and clearly less maintained, forcing them to proceed in single file through near darkness. After what felt like hours, the tunnel widened again, and Ben recognized markings that matched the main passage. They had successfully bypassed the Marine checkpoint. We should be close to the exit now, Kureha whispered. Another half-mile at most. But as they rounded the next bend, Ben's heart sank. The tunnel ahead was filled with Marines, not just regular soldiers, but elite units in black uniforms. And at their center stood Vice Admiral Enigmo himself, all 8 arms crossed as if he'd been expecting them. Captain Tennyson, he greeted coldly. Did you really think we wouldn't secure all exits? Ben stepped protectively in front of the patients and Dr. Kureha. How did you find the tunnels so quickly? We've known about Drum Island's secret passages for years, Enigmo replied dismissively. They're documented in world government archives. We simply waited for you to choose your escape route. Ben reached for the Omnitrix, but Enigmo raised a hand. I wouldn't. My men have orders to fire on the civilians if you transform. Stand down, and they won't be harmed. Like I'd believe that after seeing what you did to devil fruit users at your research facilities, Ben retorted. Those were necessary sacrifices for a greater purpose, Enigmo said. These people will be treated humanely, as long as you cooperate. Ben hesitated, weighing his options. The tunnel was too narrow for most of his larger transformations, and even if he could defeat Enigmo, the patients would be caught in the crossfire. What do you want? He asked finally. Just you, Tennyson, Enigmo replied. Surrender yourself and the Omnitrix for study, and Dr. Kureha and her patients can go free. Ben blinked in surprise. You know about the Omnitrix? Enigmo smiled thinly. Of course. Did you think Albedo's research was conducted in isolation? The five elders have been monitoring your activities since you first appeared in our world 3 years ago. That revelation hit Ben like a physical blow. They knew. They'd always known he wasn't from this world. And what about Gwen? Kevin? Vice Admiral Tennyson has been most cooperative in providing information about your device's capabilities, Enigmo said, watching Ben's reaction closely. Though she believes we merely wish to understand it, not replicate it. You're lying, Ben said, though a seed of doubt had been planted. Gwen would never betray us. Loyalty to family or loyalty to justice, Enigmo mused. A difficult choice for any Marine. But irrelevant to our current situation. He extended one of his 8 hands. The Omnitrix, Tennyson. Now. Ben looked back at the frightened patients, at Dr. Correa's grim expression. Then he glanced down at the Omnitrix. If he surrendered it, these people might go free, but the world government would gain access to the most powerful device in the universe. If he fought, people would die here in these tunnels. There had to be another way. I need a guarantee, Ben said, playing for time. Not just your word. I want these people given official amnesty, signed by the Fleet Admiral himself. Enigmo's expression tightened. You're in no position to make demands. I'm in exactly that position, Ben countered. You want the Omnitrix intact and cooperative. That only happens if I willingly remove it, which I won't do unless these people are guaranteed safety. It was a bluff. Ben couldn't remove the Omnitrix easily, it was genetically bound to him. But Enigmo didn't know that. The Vice Admiral seemed to consider this, multiple arms twitching with impatience. Very well. I will arrange for the necessary documentation. Immediately, Ben insisted. Before I hand over anything. Enigmo's face darkened with anger, but he nodded to one of his officers, who produced a Den Mushi. The Vice Admiral stepped away to make the call, leaving Ben momentarily unobserved. Dr. Correa leaned close. Whatever you're planning, boy, do it fast. He has no intention of letting any of us go. I know, Ben whispered back. Get ready to move when I give the signal. He discreetly activated the Omnitrix, cycling through his available transformations while keeping the device partially covered by his sleeve. He needed something that could create an escape opportunity without endangering the patients or collapsing the tunnel. Enigmo returned, looking smugly satisfied. The Fleet Admiral has agreed to your terms. Amnesty papers will be waiting at Marine headquarters. Now, the Omnitrix. Ben stepped forward slowly. You'll get what you want, Enigmo. But first, let me show you exactly what you're getting. He slammed down on the Omnitrix dial before anyone could react. Green light flooded the tunnel, temporarily blinding the Marines. When it faded, a small, amphibian-like creature stood where Ben had been. Gray matter, he announced in a high-pitched voice. Enigmo laughed. This pathetic form is your solution. Men, seize him. But gray matter was already moving, his enhanced intelligence allowing him to analyze the tunnel structure in seconds. He leaped onto the ceiling, tiny hands finding and activating a hidden mechanism that Dr. Correa had mentioned earlier, an ancient defense system built into the tunnel network. With a grinding sound, a section of the floor between the Marines and Ben's group suddenly gave way, revealing a steep chute. Down the slide. Now. Gray matter squeaked. Correa immediately pushed the patients forward. It leads to the western cove. Go. As they slid down the chute one by one, Enigmo roared in fury. Stop them. Marines fired their weapons, but the narrow tunnel and poor lighting made accurate shooting impossible. Gray matter was the last to enter the chute, pausing only to trigger a second mechanism that caused loose stones to fall from the ceiling, partially blocking the entrance behind them. The slide was steep and dark, carrying them downward at breakneck speed. Gray matter clung desperately to a handhold, calculating their likely exit point based on the angle and grade of descent. After what felt like minutes but was likely only seconds, they emerged into blinding daylight, sliding out of a camouflaged opening directly onto a rocky beach. Ahead of them stretched the open sea, and to their right, nestled against the shore, was the small fishing village Kureha had mentioned. And there, already pushing off from the dock, was a medium-sized fishing vessel with Kevin at the helm and Robin on deck, helping the first group of escapees aboard. Perfect timing. Kevin called out as he spotted them. Hurry up. Marine reinforcements can't be far behind. Gray matter transformed back into Ben in a flash of green light. Get these people aboard. We've got Marines right behind us. As if to emphasize his point, shouts echoed from the tunnel exit as the first Marines began to emerge. Ben activated the Omnitrix again, transforming into a massive, plant-like creature. Swampfire. Using his control over plants, Swampfire caused the sparse vegetation around the tunnel exit to grow explosively, entangling the emerging Marines in vines and roots. Then he generated a wall of flames to create a barrier between the Marines and the escaping patients. That won't hold them long, he called to Kevin. Is everyone aboard? Just about. Kevin replied, helping the last few patients onto the boat. Where's the old lady? Swampfire looked around in alarm, realizing Dr. Kureha was no longer with them. She was right behind me. I'm staying, came her voice from near the village path. Kureha stood with arms crossed, watching them with a determined expression. Someone needs to delay them further, and this is my island. But they'll arrest you. Swampfire protested. Let them try, Kureha cackled. I'm the only doctor for 50 miles. Even the world government won't risk alienating Drum Island by imprisoning me without cause. She was probably right, but Ben hated leaving anyone behind. Are you sure? Go, boy, she snapped. Find the truth about your Omnitrix and this Project Ultimatrix. There are answers waiting for you on that island Gwen mentioned. The Chronosapian ruins? Kureha nodded. History repeats, especially when fools meddle with forces they don't understand. Now go. Swampfire hesitated one moment longer, then nodded. Thank you. He backed toward the boat, maintaining the wall of fire as long as possible. Once aboard, he transformed back to human form, exhaustion hitting him like a physical blow. Robin steadied him as he swayed on his feet. You're pushing the Omnitrix too hard, she observed quietly. Multiple transformations in such a short time. No choice, Ben replied through gritted teeth. How's everyone else? Safe, thanks to you, Robin assured him. Coral is helping navigate. She says she knows a route that will avoid marine patrols. As the boat pulled away from shore, Ben looked back at the diminishing figure of Dr. Kureha, still standing defiantly on the beach as Marines began to break through his plant barrier. Will she really be okay? He asked Robin. Dr. Kureha has survived far worse than Marine interrogation, Robin replied with a small smile. She's been a thorn in the world government's side for decades. Kevin joined them at the stern, having set Coral in charge of the helm. So, where to now? We can't exactly go back to Sabaody. No, Ben agreed. We need to follow the original plan. Find the island Gwen mentioned, the one with ruins that might explain the connection between the Omnitrix and this world. Robin's eyes sharpened with interest. Ancient ruins connected to your device? Where? Ben hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. But after everything they'd been through together, Robin had more than earned his trust. An uncharted island somewhere in the New World, he explained. Gwen found references to it in classified world government archives, a place where ancient people apparently created technology similar to the Omnitrix. Interesting, Robin mused. During the Void Century, certain civilizations were said to have developed technology far beyond what exists today. The world government systematically destroyed most records of these achievements. Because they were afraid of the power? Kevin guessed. Perhaps, Robin replied. Or perhaps because that technology came from beyond our world, like your Omnitrix. The implication hung in the air between them. If Robin was right, the connection between Ben's world and this one went back centuries, possibly millennia. Dr. Correja mentioned something, Ben said slowly. She said she met Professor Paradox 50 years ago. He told her our worlds weren't supposed to connect, but something was forcing bridges between realities. Kevin's eyes widened. Paradox was here. That can't be a coincidence. Nothing ever is with him, Ben agreed. And now we have Albedo developing the Ultimatrix, CP0 hunting devil fruit users with transformation abilities, and ancient ruins that might connect to the Omnitrix. It all points to something bigger, Robin concluded. Something the world government has been hiding for centuries. The three of them fell silent, watching as Drum Island receded into the distance. Behind them, marine ships were visible on the horizon, but their damaged state meant pursuit would be delayed. For now, they had escaped. But Ben couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading towards something far more dangerous than what they'd left behind. The true nature of the Omnitrix in this world, the mysteries of the Void Century, Project Ultimatrix's ultimate purpose, all these threads seemed to be converging. And at their center waited an island that officially didn't exist, with ruins that might hold the key to everything. Or that might spring a trap from which there was no escape. Chapter 3, True Justice. The uncharted waters of the New World churned violently beneath the stolen fishing vessel. For 2 weeks they'd navigated through storms, sea kings, and the occasional marine patrol. Ben stood at the bow, watching dark clouds gather on the horizon while the Omnitrix glowed softly on his wrist. "We're close," Coral said, joining him at the railing. Her scaled skin glistened with the salt spray, looking healthier than it had on Drum Island. "The currents are shifting exactly like the ancient texts described." Ben glanced at her with newfound respect. The former marine biologist had proven invaluable during their journey, her knowledge of ocean patterns helping them avoid detection while navigating toward coordinates that didn't appear on any official map. "How much longer?" "Hours, not days," she replied. "But that storm ahead worries me. These waters are unpredictable enough without adding cyclone conditions." Kevin approached, metal skin gleaming in the dim light. He'd been maintaining his absorbed state longer lately, claiming it helped him sense changes in the magnetic field. "Storm or no storm, we've got bigger problems. Supply check shows 3 days of food left, and the hull's taking on water faster than we can patch it." "This boat was never meant for extended deep-water travel," Robin added, joining their impromptu meeting. "And certainly not with 20 people aboard." Ben ran a hand through his salt-stiffened hair. 2 weeks at sea had left all of them ragged, but the freed devil fruit users had suffered most. Many still showed signs of their captivity, haunted eyes, lingering injuries, and a wariness that surfaced whenever Ben wore his marine coat to fool distant patrols. "We don't have a choice," Ben said finally. "We can't turn back, and there's no friendly port within reach." "There's another option," Robin suggested quietly. "The Thousand Sunny." Ben raised an eyebrow. "Your ship? You've been in contact with your crew?" Robin nodded, pulling out a small, specialized Den mushy that looked different from standard models. "Transponder snails with modified frequencies. The world government can't monitor them." "Why mention this now?" Kevin asked, eyes narrowing. "We could have used backup days ago." "Because calling them puts them at risk," Robin replied calmly. "But given our situation and proximity to our destination, the benefits now outweigh the dangers." Ben considered this. Working with the Straw Hat Pirates would officially cross the line from bending marine regulations to outright treason. But they'd already freed prisoners, fought a vice admiral, and were sailing to a forbidden island. Hard to get more treasonous than that. "Make the call," he decided. Robin nodded and stepped away to use the transponder snail in private. Ben turned back to the approaching storm, thoughts racing. "You sure about this, Tennyson?" Kevin asked lowly. Gwen's not going to be thrilled about us teaming up with the Straw Hats. Gwen would tell us to do whatever it takes to keep these people safe, Ben replied. Besides, she's the one who pointed us toward this island in the first place. She must have known we'd need all the help we could get. Kevin didn't look convinced but nodded anyway. Your call, Captain. The title was a reminder of what Ben had given up, his position, his crew, the structure he'd built in this world over 3 years. All sacrificed because he couldn't ignore injustice, even when it came wrapped in marine white and blue. It's done, Robin announced, returning. They'll rendezvous with us before nightfall. Luffy was enthusiastic about the prospect. I bet, Kevin muttered. That rubber maniac loves trouble almost as much as Tennyson. Ben couldn't help grinning. Takes one to know one, Levin. For all his complaints, Ben knew Kevin was just as committed to this mission as he was. Neither of them could have walked away after seeing what the world government was doing to devil fruit users. Some lines shouldn't be crossed, regardless of which universe you called home. The storm hit sooner than expected, massive waves threatening to capsize their already struggling vessel. Ben transformed into Ripjaws to make emergency repairs below the waterline while Kevin reinforced the mast with his absorbed metal properties. The rescued devil fruit users helped where they could, those with water-compatible powers proving especially valuable. Just when it seemed the fishing boat might finally surrender to the elements, a distinctive ship appeared through the curtain of rain, the Thousand Sunny, lion figurehead charging proudly through the massive waves as if they were mere ripples. They're here. Coral shouted over the howling wind. The Straw Hat crew worked with practiced efficiency, bringing the Sunny alongside their failing vessel and extending ropes to help transfer everyone aboard. Luffy himself stretched his rubber arms across the gap, creating a human bridge for the weakest patients. Ben was the last aboard, transforming into Big Chill to fly across after ensuring the fishing boat was empty. He landed on the Sunny's grass deck and transformed back just as Luffy bounded over. Transform guy, the Straw Hat captain greeted with his characteristic wide grin. Robin said you're fighting the government too now. Does this mean you'll join my crew? Still not joining your crew, Luffy, Ben replied, unable to help returning the smile. But thanks for the rescue. No problem. Robin said you're going to a mystery island with ancient ruins. Sounds like an adventure. The rest of the Straw Hat crew approached with varying degrees of caution. Ben recognized them all from their bounty posters: Zoro, the green-haired swordsman; Nami, the orange-haired navigator; Usopp, the long-nosed sniper; Sanji, the suited cook; Chopper, the reindeer doctor; Frankie, the cyborg shipwright; and Brook, the skeletal musician. A marine on our ship, Zoro commented, hand resting casually on his swords. Times really are changing. Ex-marine, Ben corrected. Recent career change. Because of what they were doing to devil fruit users, Robin explained to her crewmates. Ben chose justice over orders. Chopper stepped forward, his small form shifting to a more humanoid shape. I've been treating the rescued prisoners. Most are stable, but they'll need ongoing care. You have my gratitude, Ben told the reindeer doctor. And fair warning, the world government is particularly interested in transformation-type devil fruit users like yourself. Robin says they've been targeting you specifically. Chopper gulped but stood his ground. I am not afraid. I'll fight to protect my patients. That's the spirit, Kevin said, joining them after helping settle the rescued prisoners below deck. But first, we need to figure out exactly what we're sailing into. Nami gestured toward the ship's library. We should talk inside. This storm's only getting worse. The Thousand Sunny's library was warm and well-lit, a welcome change from the fishing boat's cramped quarters. Maps and navigational tools covered a large central table, where Nami had already spread out the limited information they had on their destination. Based on the coordinates and Robin's historical knowledge, we're heading to what ancient texts called Kronos Island, she explained. It doesn't appear on any modern maps because its magnetic field supposedly renders it invisible to log poses. How are we supposed to find it then? Usopp asked nervously. Robin placed a small, golden device on the table, an artifact that resembled a compass but with strange, shifting symbols around its edge. This was in the documents we recovered from Alabastus Royal Library. It's said to point toward places outside of natural time. Where'd you get that? Ben asked, leaning closer to examine the device. I liberated it from a government archive during our escape from Sabaody, Robin admitted with a small smile. She means she stole it, Zoro clarified unnecessarily. Borrowed indefinitely, Robin corrected primly. Ben shook his head but couldn't suppress a smile. Pirates would be pirates, even the helpful ones. According to Gwen's research, he continued, getting them back on track, Kronos Island contains ruins that supposedly predate the Void Century. The architecture allegedly shows similarities to technology from my world. Your world? Frankie repeated, raising his metal eyebrows. What does that mean? Ben exchanged glances with Kevin. They'd avoided explaining their extra-dimensional origins to most people in this world, but if anyone deserved the truth now, it was the crew risking their lives to help them. I'm not from this world, Ben explained simply. Neither is Kevin, or my cousin Gwen. We were pulled here through some kind of dimensional rift 3 years ago. That explains so much, Nami muttered. Your powers never made sense as a devil fruit. So the Omnitrix, Robin gestured to Ben's wrist, is technology from another dimension? Ben nodded. It contains DNA samples of different alien species, allowing me to transform into them. In my world, it was created by a being called Azimuth as the ultimate preservation tool and symbol of peace. Super cool. Frankie exclaimed, striking his signature pose. Alien DNA storage in a wristwatch. And you think this island somehow connects to your dimension? Sanji asked, lighting a cigarette. That's the working theory, Kevin confirmed. Something on that island might explain why we were pulled into this world, and why the world government is so interested in replicating Ben's powers through Project Ultimatrix. Which brings us to our biggest problem, Ben added grimly. We're almost certainly sailing into a trap. The room fell silent as everyone processed this. What makes you so sure? Zoro asked finally. Because Albedo has been one step ahead of us since Sabaody, Ben explained. He knows about the Omnitrix, knows I'm not from this world, and has created a device that can copy my transformations. If he's as smart as I think he is, he's already figured out where we're heading. And if the ruins contain what we think they do. Kevin trailed off. Then the world government will want to secure them at any cost, Robin finished. Especially if they could provide the key to perfecting the Ultimatrix. Luffy, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, suddenly punched his fists together with a determined expression. So what? We'll just beat them up if they're waiting for us. Ben couldn't help but laugh. It's not that simple. We could be facing CP0, vice admirals, maybe worse. Doesn't matter, Luffy declared with absolute certainty. You helped my Nakama, so you're my friend too. We're going to that mystery island, and if anyone tries to stop us, they'll have to deal with the future Pirate King. The simplicity of Luffy's worldview was strangely refreshing. In his mind, friends helped friends, everything else was just details. Speaking of the island, Nami interjected, the golden compass is starting to react. Everyone turned to see the artifact on the table vibrating slightly, its needle spinning before settling on a direction slightly off their current course. We're close, Robin said softly. Then let's not waste time, Ben decided. The sooner we reach those ruins, the sooner we get answers. The storm cleared with unnatural suddenness as the Thousand Sunny approached what appeared to be an empty stretch of ocean. One moment they were fighting mountainous waves, the next, they sailed through eerily calm waters under a clear sky filled with stars. This isn't normal, Nami said, checking her instruments with growing concern. The barometric pressure shouldn't allow for this kind of weather change. Look. Chopper pointed toward the horizon. Something's happening to the water. The sea ahead began to shimmer with an otherworldly light, colors shifting through the spectrum in patterns that hurt the eyes if observed too long. Gradually, an island materialized through this distortion, a landmass that by all rights shouldn't exist. Kronos Island. From a distance, it appeared almost disappointingly ordinary, a rocky mass covered in dense jungle, with a single mountain peak at its center. As they drew closer, however, the differences became apparent. The vegetation glowed with bioluminescence despite the night having just begun, and what they had taken for natural rock formations along the shore revealed themselves to be massive, weathered statues. Those are Chronocepians, Ben breathed, recognizing the gear-like forms even in their eroded state. Chrono what? Usopp asked, peering through his goggles. Chronocepians, a species from my universe with time manipulation abilities, Ben explained. One of my transformations, Clockwork, is based on their DNA. You mean those alien clock guys actually existed in this world too? Kevin asked incredulously. Not necessarily, Robin interjected, studying the statues with professional interest. Ancient cultures often depicted gods or visitors from other realms. These could be representations rather than accurate depictions. Either way, it confirms we're in the right place, Ben said. Gwen's research mentioned Chronosapien time cores specifically. Frankie guided the Sunny toward a natural harbor on the island's eastern side, the only approach that looked navigable through the jagged reefs. As they neared the shore, Ben felt the Omnitrix grow warm against his wrist, its symbol pulsing with a soft green light. Is it supposed to do that? Luffy asked, pointing at the device. No, Ben admitted, studying the Omnitrix with concern. It's reacting to something on the island. The ancient tech Gwen mentioned. Kevin suggested. Maybe, Ben agreed, though something felt off. The Omnitrix had never responded autonomously to external technology before, not unless it was directly keyed to its Galvan origins. They anchored the Sunny in the sheltered cove, leaving Frankie and Brook to guard the ship and watch over the recovering patients. The rest formed an expedition party to search for the ruins, with Nami consulting both conventional maps and Robin's golden compass to guide them. The jungle was unlike anything Ben had encountered in either world. Plants moved with apparent sentience, some reaching curiously toward them as they passed, others shrinking away. The bioluminescence created patterns that seemed almost like writing when viewed from certain angles. This whole island feels alive, Chopper whispered, his sensitive nose twitching constantly. It's the temporal distortion, Ben theorized, watching the Omnitrix continue to pulse. This place exists partially outside normal time, like Professor Paradox's realm. The professor you mentioned to Dr. Kureha? Robin asked. Ben nodded. He's a time traveler from my universe. If anyone could explain what's happening here, it would be him. They hiked for nearly an hour before reaching a clearing where the jungle abruptly ended. Before them stood a massive structure that defied conventional architecture, a temple or observatory built not of stone but of what appeared to be living metal, its surfaces flowing and reshaping subtly as they watched. That's not possible, Nami breathed. Metal doesn't move like that. It does if it's galvanic mechamorph technology, Ben replied, his voice tight with shock. That's from my universe, upgrade species. The entrance to the structure was a perfect circle that spiraled open as they approached, responding to the Omnitrix's pulsing light. Inside, the walls were covered in intricate circuits that glowed with the same green energy as Ben's transformations. This can't be a coincidence, Kevin muttered. This place is connected to the Omnitrix somehow. They moved deeper into the structure, following corridors that seemed to shift and reconfigure around them. Robin examined the symbols etched into the flowing metal, her archaeological expertise evident in her focused expression. These inscriptions combine elements from both the ancient language of the Void Century and something else, something I've never seen before, she observed. But there are recurring symbols that match what appears on Ben's device when it activates. The Omnitrix's transformation interface uses Galvan script, Ben confirmed, examining the walls. This is definitely technology from my universe, but adapted or merged with something from yours. The corridor eventually opened into a vast central chamber dominated by a platform surrounded by suspended rings of the living metal. At the center of the platform stood a pedestal bearing an object that made Ben's breath catch, a perfect replica of a Chronosapien time core, pulsing with energy that matched the Omnitrix's rhythm. "We found it," Robin whispered reverently. "Yeah," Kevin agreed, "but looks like we're not the first ones here today." He pointed to fresh footprints in the dust covering the floor, leading around the platform to a section of wall that appeared to have been recently excavated. Tools and equipment bearing the world government insignia lay scattered nearby. "They beat us here," Ben realized with sinking certainty. Albedo's already found what he was looking for. As if summoned by his name, a familiar voice echoed through the chamber. "Not quite everything, Tennyson. There's still one crucial component missing." They turned to see Albedo stepping from behind a column, his modified Omnitrix gleaming white on his wrist. Behind him emerged a dozen CP0 agents in their distinctive masks, and a figure that made Robin tense visibly, a tall, thin man in an immaculate suit with a CP0 mask pushed up to reveal a face with ageless features. Agent Paradox, Robin identified quietly. CP0's temporal specialist. Ben's head snapped up. "Paradox?" The CP0 agent smiled thinly. "You recognize my code name?" "I'm flattered." "It's not his real name," Robin clarified quickly. CP0 agents often adopt monikers that reflect their specialties. His is tracking people through time and space, finding those who don't want to be found. Ben studied the man carefully. Despite the name, he bore no resemblance to the Professor Paradox he knew. This was just an unfortunate coincidence, or perhaps something more deliberate. "Where's Vilgax?" Ben demanded, turning his attention back to Albedo. "I thought you two were working together." "A temporary arrangement that has concluded," Albedo replied dismissively. "Fishmen are useful for certain applications, but lack the intellectual capacity for this phase of the project." "And what exactly is this phase?" Kevin asked, subtly absorbing the properties of the metal floor beneath them. Albedo gestured grandly toward the time core. "The culmination of Project Ultimatrix. With this Chronosapien technology, we can stabilize the dimensional aperture and create a perfect bridge between worlds." "Dimensional aperture?" Robin repeated sharply. "The reason your friends arrived in our world in the first place," Agent Paradox explained, stepping forward. 3 years ago, an experiment conducted by the world government temporarily weakened the barriers between dimensions. 3 individuals crossed over, 2 with traces of anodite energy, and 1 bearing the most powerful transformation device in the cosmos. "You caused the rift that brought us here?" Ben demanded incredulously. "Not intentionally," Albedo admitted. "The original experiment was merely attempting to access the void between worlds, where devil fruit powers are said to originate. Your arrival was an unexpected but fortunate side effect." The pieces clicked together in Ben's mind with horrifying clarity. "You've been studying us since we arrived. That's why Gwen rose through Marine ranks so quickly, you were keeping her close." Vice Admiral Tennyson's anodite heritage manifests as what this world calls observation hockey, Agent Paradox confirmed. "Most impressive, even by our standards. And your cousin Kevin's absorption abilities provided valuable insights into certain devil fruit mechanics." "But the Omnitrix," Albedo continued, eyes gleaming with obsession, "that was the true prize. Technology beyond anything our world has achieved, containing genetic samples from species that have never existed in our universe. And now you want to use the time core to, what? Create a permanent bridge to my world?" Ben asked, hand hovering near the Omnitrix. "Not just to your world," Albedo corrected. "To all worlds. The Chronosapien technology allows navigation of the multiverse, selective harvesting of powers and abilities from infinite realities." The implications were staggering. If the world government gained that kind of access, they could acquire weapons and abilities beyond anything this world had ever seen. They could become truly unstoppable. That's insane, Ben said flatly. You have no idea what forces you're messing with. Multiversal travel has consequences, timeline disruptions, paradoxes, dimensional collapse. All manageable with proper application of the time core, Albedo dismissed. The ancient builders of this facility understood this. They created stable pathways between worlds thousands of years ago, before the world government's predecessors destroyed their civilization during what you now call the Void Century. Robin's eyes widened. The missing history, it wasn't just about the ancient weapons. It was about interdimensional contact. Precisely, Agent Paradox confirmed. The 20 kingdoms that formed the world government feared the power that came from beyond our reality. They systematically eliminated all traces of the technology and those who understood it, except for this island, which they couldn't find due to its temporal displacement. Until now, Albedo added smugly. Thanks to the energy signature of the Omnitrix, we were finally able to locate it. Luffy, who had been uncharacteristically quiet throughout this exchange, suddenly stepped forward. I don't understand all this complicated stuff, but it sounds like you're trying to steal powers from other worlds. That's the same as stealing people's freedom. I won't let you do that. Albedo looked amused. And how do you propose to stop us, Straw Hat? This facility is now under world government control. CP0's finest agents stand ready. And I have this. He activated his modified Omnitrix, transforming in a flash of red light into a negative version of Humungosaur, but larger, with more pronounced spikes and armor plates. Ultimate Humungosaur, he announced in a deep, distorted voice. An evolved version of Tennyson's transformation, with twice the strength and enhanced offensive capabilities. Ben didn't waste time with further conversation. He activated the Omnitrix and transformed into 4 arms, immediately leaping toward Albedo while the others engaged the CP0 agents. The chamber erupted into chaos. Luffy stretched into gear second, his skin steaming as he launched a barrage of high-speed punches at Agent Paradox. Zoro unleashed a three-sword-style attack against a cluster of CP0 agents, while Sanji's flaming kicks kept others at bay. Robin used her powers to disrupt the agents' movements, sprouting arms from their bodies to redirect their strikes. Kevin absorbed the living metal of the facility, his body taking on its flowing, adaptive properties. This new form allowed him to reshape his limbs into weapons that could counteract the CP0 agent's 6 powers techniques. 4 arms and Ultimate Humungosaur crashed together in the center of the chamber, the impact sending shockwaves through the ancient structure. Despite his 4-armed advantage, Ben found himself being pushed back by Albedo's enhanced form. You still don't understand, do you, Tennyson? Ultimate Humungosaur taunted as they grappled. The Ultimatrix doesn't just copy your transformations, it evolves them to their peak potential. Everything you can do, I can do better. He punctuated this claim by throwing 4 arms across the chamber into a wall, which cracked under the impact. Ben recovered quickly, transforming in a flash of green light into Diamond Head. Crystal shards shot toward Albedo, who simply transformed again, this time into an enhanced, spiked version of Cannonbolt that deflected the crystals harmlessly. Ultimate Cannonbolt, he announced, then rolled forward with devastating speed. Diamond Head created a crystal ramp, redirecting Ultimate Cannonbolt's charge toward a group of CP0 agents instead. The collision scattered them, giving Nami an opening to summon lightning with her Climattack, stunning several opponents at once. The battle raged throughout the chamber, neither side gaining a clear advantage. The Straw Hats fought with their characteristic coordination and creativity, while the CP0 agents demonstrated why they were considered the government's ultimate enforcers. But the Time Core was reacting to the chaos around it, its pulsing becoming more erratic with each impact to the chamber. Energy arcs began to leap between the suspended rings, and the living metal walls flowed more rapidly, as if agitated. The facility is destabilizing. Robin called out, dodging a CP0 agent's attack. The temporal field is fluctuating. Ben transformed into XLR-8, using his speed to create a whirlwind that disoriented the remaining CP0 agents before racing to the platform where the time core sat. Albedo, now in an ultimate XLR-8 form with bladed appendages and enhanced speed, intercepted him. "The core belongs to the world government," he snarled, lashing out with bladed limbs that XLR-8 barely avoided. "It doesn't belong to anyone." Ben shot back, transforming again, this time into Clockwork, the Chronosapien form whose connection to the time core might give him an advantage. The key-like protrusion on Clockwork's head began to spin, generating a green temporal ray that slowed Ultimate XLR-8's movements to a crawl. Taking advantage of the opening, Clockwork approached the core, which reacted strongly to his presence, glowing brighter and synchronizing its pulses with the gear-like mechanism in his chest. "It recognizes you," Robin observed, having fought her way to the platform. "Because Clockwork is a Chronosapien," Ben explained, his voice mechanical in this form. "The same species that created this technology." Albedo broke free of the temporal effect, transforming into a form Ben had never seen, a negative version of Clockwork but with multiple gear mechanisms and a more elaborate, crown-like head. "Ultimate Clockwork," he announced. "With the power to not just manipulate time, but rewrite it." He generated a temporal wave that countered Clockwork's, the opposing forces creating a visible distortion in the air between them. The time core's pulses became faster, more unstable. "Ben!" Kevin called out, fighting his way toward them. "Whatever you're going to do it fast. This place is coming apart." He was right. The living metal walls were losing cohesion, sections liquefying completely while others solidified into jagged crystalline formations. The temporal distortion was affecting the physical structure of the facility itself. Clockwork reached for the time core, but Ultimate Clockwork intercepted, grabbing his arm. "You have no idea how to use it, Tennyson. I've studied this technology for years. But you don't understand what it's for." Ben retorted. "This wasn't built to conquer or control, it was built to connect. To share knowledge between worlds." "A naive interpretation," Albedo sneered. "Power is meant to be used." Their struggle intensified, both pushing temporal energies that fed into the core between them. The artifact began to spin rapidly, generating a field that expanded outward through the ring surrounding the platform. "Everyone get back!" Robin shouted to her crewmates. Temporal displacement imminent. Most heeded her warning, retreating toward the chamber entrance. Luffy, however, charged straight for the platform, his arm stretching back for a powerful blow. Gum gum. Red Hawk. His fist ignited with flames as it rocketed forward, striking not Albedo or Ben, but the pedestal beneath the time core. The impact cracked the ancient material, disrupting the connection between the core and the facility. For a moment, everything seemed to freeze, combatants suspended in mid-action, energy arcs halted between points, even dust particles hanging motionless in the air. Then reality shattered. A blinding flash of green and white light erupted from the time core, engulfing the entire chamber. Ben felt Clockwork's form dissipate involuntarily, returning him to human shape as the temporal energy washed over him. Through the overwhelming light, he saw Albedo similarly revert, the modified Omnitrix on his wrist sparking and smoking. When the light faded, the chamber had transformed. The walls now displayed what appeared to be windows into other realities, countless worlds and timelines visible through transparent sections of the living metal. Ben recognized some, his own Earth, Galvan Prime, the Null Void. Others were completely foreign, yet somehow familiar. At the center, the time core now floated freely above its broken pedestal, surrounded by a sphere of pure energy that connected to each window in pulsing streams. "It's a nexus," Robin breathed in awe. "A connection point between all realities." "And it's collapsing," came a new voice, familiar to Ben but impossibly out of place. Everyone turned to see a man in a white lab coat and goggles materialize beside the core, hands clasped behind his back and expression serene despite the chaos. "Professor Paradox!" Ben exclaimed. "Hello, Ben," the time traveler greeted cheerfully. Lovely place you found, though I'm afraid it's about to undergo some rather dramatic renovations. Who? Albedo began, but the professor cut him off with a raised hand. Professor Paradox, Time Walker, occasional meddler in multiversal affairs, and the person who's been trying to clean up this dimensional mess for quite some time. He glanced at Agent Paradox of CP0. No relation, though I'm flattered by the homage. You know what's happening? Ben asked urgently. Indeed, Paradox confirmed. This facility was built during what this world calls the Void Century by scientists who discovered naturally occurring tears in the fabric of reality. They constructed the core to stabilize these tears, allowing controlled observation and occasional transit between dimensions. Just as our research suggested, Albedo interrupted, his scientific curiosity momentarily overriding his hostility. Yes, but with one crucial difference, Paradox continued. They built it to foster understanding and exchange of knowledge, not to extract powers or technologies. When the early world government discovered its purpose, they attempted to weaponize it instead. The resulting catastrophe nearly destroyed both our universes. The Great Cleansing, Robin murmured. Ancient texts mention a calamity that forced the 20 kingdoms to unite. Precisely, Paradox nodded. The scientists who built this place sacrificed themselves to deactivate the core and seal the facility in a temporal bubble, outside normal time, where it couldn't be found again. Until we arrived and provided a breadcrumb trail, Ben realized guiltily. Don't blame yourself, Ben, Paradox assured him. The connection between our worlds has been reopening naturally for decades. Your arrival was just one symptom, not the cause. But now the core is active again, Kevin pointed out, and from the looks of those windows, it's connecting to a lot more than just our world. That's the problem, Paradox confirmed grimly. Without proper stabilization protocols, the core is establishing random connections across the multiverse. Each one weakens the barriers further. If it continues, both our universes, and countless others, will begin to bleed together. The implications didn't need to be spelled out. Different realities with different physical laws colliding would mean chaos on an unimaginable scale. How do we stop it? Ben asked. The core must be reset and properly programmed, Paradox explained. It requires a Chronosapiens direct interface. Which means clockwork, Ben realized, reaching for the Omnitrix. Not so fast, Tennyson, Albedo interjected, his own device sparking but still functional. If anyone's going to control multiversal technology, it should be someone with the scientific understanding to use it properly. That's where you're wrong, Paradox said mildly. The core doesn't respond to scientific knowledge. It responds to intent and worthiness. Like many ancient technologies, it was designed with moral safeguards. Luffy stepped forward, looking uncharacteristically serious. Ben should do it. He's fought to protect people this whole time, even when it meant going against his own side. The rubber man is surprisingly insightful, Paradox remarked. The core needs someone who understands both worlds and genuinely wants to protect them, not exploit them. Ben looked at the floating artifact, then at the windows showing countless realities in peril. He thought of his 3 years in this world, the people he'd met, the justice he'd fought for, the home he'd built despite everything. What will happen to the connections between our worlds, he asked Paradox. Will they close completely? That depends on how you program the core, Paradox explained. You could seal the breach entirely, or establish controlled, limited contact. The choice will be yours. The choice meant more than just the fate of 2 universes. It meant deciding his own future, whether he, Gwen, and Kevin would ever have a chance to return home, or would remain in this world permanently. There's no time for deliberation, Agent Paradox of CP0 suddenly interrupted, having remained silent until now. The world government has claimed this technology. CP0, secure the core. The remaining agents moved to comply, but found themselves facing not just the Straw Hats, but Albedo as well. Fool, the scientist snarled at the agent. If the core destabilizes completely, there won't be a world government left to serve. For once, Ben found himself in agreement with his nemesis. He activated the Omnitrix, transforming into clockwork once more. The core responded immediately, energy tendrils reaching out to connect with the key-like mechanism on his head. Stop him! Agent Paradox commanded, but Luffy and the others formed a protective circle around Clockwork, holding off both CP0 and a suddenly uncertain Albedo. Do what you need to do, Ben, Robin called out. We'll handle them. Connected to the core, Clockwork could see everything, every timeline, every possibility, every branch of reality stemming from this moment. He saw his home universe continuing without him, Grandpa Max leading the plumbers, Gwen attending college, Kevin finding legitimate work. He saw this world's potential futures, some where the world government continued its domination unchallenged, others where a new era of freedom dawned. And he saw the connections, thin threads of possibility that linked certain individuals across dimensions. People like Professor Paradox, whose counterparts existed in multiple realities. People with the potential to bridge worlds through understanding rather than conquest. I know what to do, Clockwork announced, his voice resonating with newfound certainty. The key mechanism on his head spun faster, channeling energy into precise configurations. The windows around the chamber began to close one by one, sealing the random connections that threatened stability. But 3 remained open, pathways to specific points in Ben's home universe. What are you doing? Albedo demanded, breaking through the defensive line to approach the platform. Creating balance, Clockwork replied. Not isolation, not exploitation, connection. The core responded to his intent, its energy reorganizing according to his will. The facility around them began to stabilize, the living metal walls returning to their solid state but now inscribed with new patterns, a combination of Galvan script and the ancient language of the Void Century. He's programming a new protocol, Professor Paradox observed with approval. Limited, controlled connections between specific points in both universes. Impossible. Agent Paradox protested. The 5 elders won't allow this. They won't have a choice, Clockwork responded, his voice echoing with temporal power. The core now answers only to those who seek balance between worlds, not power over them. With a final surge of energy, the process completed. The core settled into a stable rhythm, its light dimming to a sustainable glow. The 3 remaining windows contracted to small portals, then faded into the walls, still present but no longer actively connecting. Clockwork transformed back into Ben, who staggered slightly from the mental exertion. Robin caught his arm, steadying him. What did you do? She asked quietly. I set conditions, Ben explained, watching as the facility continued to heal around them. The core will allow limited travel between our worlds, but only for those with genuine need or those who can contribute to mutual understanding between realities. And what about us? Kevin asked, joining them. Did you program our ticket home? Ben nodded slowly. Yes, but with a condition. The portals will only open once we've finished what we started here, stopping Project Ultimatrix and ensuring this world's government can't exploit cross-dimensional technology. So we're staying, Kevin concluded, not sounding particularly disappointed. For now, Ben confirmed. There's too much at stake to leave. Albedo had fallen to his knees, staring at his malfunctioning device. My Ultimatrix, the core's energy damaged its dimensional sampling capabilities. Good, Ben said without sympathy. Some powers aren't meant to be copied or enhanced. Professor Paradox approached, looking pleased. A most elegant solution, Ben. The core is now self-sustaining and self-protecting. Even if the world government finds this place again, they won't be able to use it for conquest. But they'll try, Agent Paradox warned, his CP0 team regrouping behind him. This isn't over, Tennyson. No, Ben agreed. It's just beginning. Luffy stepped forward, cracking his knuckles. So are we beating these guys up now or what? I've been patient, but I'm ready for the real fight. Ben couldn't help laughing despite the tension. Luffy's straightforward approach to problems was exactly what he needed sometimes. We should leave, Robin suggested, gesturing to the facility around them. The temporal distortions are stabilizing, but there could be aftershocks. A wise suggestion, Professor Paradox agreed. The core will complete its reconfiguration without further input. He turned to Ben. I'll be keeping an eye on things from my end of reality. This connection between worlds is unusual but not necessarily problematic, as long as it's properly managed. Will I see you again? Ben asked. Time is my playground, young Tennyson, Paradox replied with a smile. I'm certain our paths will cross again when they need to. With that, he vanished in a flash of blue light, leaving them facing the CP0 agents and a defeated Albedo. We still have to get out of here, Kevin pointed out. And they're blocking the exit. Not for long, Luffy declared, entering Gear 4 with a surge of compressed air that inflated his muscles to massive proportions. Bounce man. What followed was less a battle than a rout. The exhausted CP0 agents, already depleted from the earlier fighting, couldn't stand against Luffy's enhanced strength combined with the coordinated attacks of his crew. Ben transformed into Humongousaur to provide additional muscle, while Kevin and Robin ensured Albedo couldn't escape or activate any backup plans. Within minutes, the agents lay defeated, and only Agent Paradox remained standing, though barely, blood trickling from beneath his cracked mask. This victory means nothing, he gasped. The world government will never stop pursuing this power. The 5 elders have invested too much. Then they'll be disappointed, Ben replied, reverting to human form. The core is beyond their reach now. What about him? Zoro asked, nodding toward Albedo, who sat dejectedly against a wall, his modified Omnitrix occasionally sparking. Ben considered the question seriously. Albedo was dangerous, but also potentially valuable. He knew more about Project Ultimatrix than anyone except perhaps the 5 elders themselves. We're taking him with us, Ben decided. He's going to help us dismantle what he helped create. You think he'll cooperate? Kevin asked skeptically. He doesn't have much choice, Ben pointed out. His device is damaged, CP0 has failed, and he knows too much for the world government to let him live if they think he might talk. Albedo glared but didn't contradict this assessment. You have no idea what forces you're opposing, Tennyson. The 5 elders aren't just powerful, they're ancient. They've guided this world for centuries. Then maybe it's time for some new guidance, Ben replied. A justice that protects people instead of controlling them. They secured their prisoners and prepared to leave the facility, which had now stabilized completely. The living metal had hardened into a material that resembled a combination of galvanic technology and this world's rare materials. Inscriptions covered every surface, instructions for future generations, should anyone worthy ever rediscover this place. As they reached the entrance, Robin lingered, studying the writings with intense focus. What does it say? Ben asked, pausing beside her. It's a warning and a promise, she translated. To those who seek power, this place offers nothing. To those who seek understanding, it offers everything. She traced the symbols reverently. This could change our understanding of the Void Century completely. Will you publish what you've learned? Ben asked. Robin smiled sadly. Not yet. The world isn't ready. But someday. She looked at him with unexpected intensity. Your decision to stay, it wasn't just about finishing the mission, was it? Ben hesitated, then shook his head. No. I've built a life here. Made choices, connections. Going back would mean starting over again. And Gwen and Kevin? They'll decide for themselves, Ben said. The portals will be there when we're ready, if we're ever ready. Robin nodded understanding. You've chosen your own path. Your own justice. I'm still figuring out what that means, Ben admitted as they began walking again. But I know it starts with stopping Project Ultimatrix and whatever the 5 elders have planned next. Ahead, Luffy was excitedly recounting the battle to Usopp, complete with exaggerated reenactments that made Nami roll her eyes and Zoro smirk with grudging amusement. Despite everything, they maintained their spirit, their absolute certainty in their dreams and each other. Ben realized that's what he'd found in this world that had been missing in his own. Not just purpose or adventure, but genuine connection. In his home universe, he'd been a hero, but often a solitary one. Here, he'd built relationships that transcended sides, marine, pirate, revolutionary. He'd learned that justice wasn't about rules or authority, but about protecting people's freedom to choose their own paths. "So what now, Captain?" Kevin asked as they emerged from the jungle to see the Thousand Sunny waiting in the harbor, golden in the light of dawn. "Now we take the fight to them," Ben replied, the Omnitrix gleaming on his wrist. "We find Vice Admiral Gwen, expose Project Ultimatrix to the world, and show the five elders that true justice can't be contained or controlled." "Sounds like revolution," Kevin observed with a raised eyebrow. "No," Ben corrected, watching as Luffy raced ahead, eager to tell Frankie and Brook about their adventure. "Sounds like freedom." As they boarded the Sunny, Ben took one last look at Kronos Island, this nexus between worlds that had changed everything. The facility was already fading from view, slipping back into its temporal bubble where it would remain hidden until someone worthy sought it again. But its impact would continue. The connections it had established, both between worlds and between people, would shape the future in ways even Professor Paradox couldn't fully predict. Ben touched the Omnitrix, feeling its familiar energy pulse in sync with his heartbeat. It had once been his greatest tool. Now it was a symbol of something more, a bridge between worlds, a reminder of where he'd come from and who he'd chosen to become. A Marine who'd found his own justice. "Hey, transform guy." Luffy called from the deck. "You never answered my question. Now that you're not a Marine anymore, will you join my crew?" Ben laughed, the weight of recent events lifting slightly from his shoulders. "Still not joining your crew, Luffy. Worth a shot." The rubber captain grinned. "But you're still my friend. And friends help each other fight bad guys." As the Thousand Sunny set sail, leaving Kronos Island disappearing into the mist behind them, Ben felt something he hadn't experienced in a long time, certainty. Not about what challenges lay ahead, but about his place in facing them. Between worlds, between factions, he'd found his truth. Not marine justice or pirate freedom, but something uniquely his own. A hero's justice, protecting the connections that made life worth living, in any universe. The dawn light caught the Omnitrix, sending green reflections dancing across the deck. Ahead lay the new world and all its dangers. The five elders, Project Ultimatrix, whatever schemes Vilgax might still be pursuing, none of it would be easy. But for the first time since arriving in this world, Ben Tennyson wasn't fighting to get home or to fit in. He was fighting for the future he wanted to build, a future where justice meant more than following orders, where different worlds could learn from each other instead of exploiting one another. And he wasn't fighting alone. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.